Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Marvel. Starting with Spider-Man No Return. Chapter 81. Yummy, I decided to design a set of armor for you myself. Yang Ming waved his hand. There's no rush, you first understand nanotechnology thoroughly, and I'll show you something good. As he spoke, he took out a blue glass vial less than half a meter long. In the glass bottle, the blue light flickered slowly, and the special metal inside was constantly flowing in the blue light. What is this? Tony asked curiously. Yang Ming threw the glass bottle in his hand. This is Zhenjin, have you heard of it? Zhenjin. Tony smiled and said, of course I heard that anti-vibration alloy is a kind of metal. Although it has only a few decades of development history, it has a wide range of uses. It is usually used in advanced weapons such as missile control panels, aircraft gyroscopes and submarine propellers. To achieve the purpose of anti-vibration. Wait, Tony, I think you got it wrong. Yang Ming's cheeks twitched, and he explained, what I hold is vibrating gold, also known as sound-absorbing steel, which is extremely rare on Earth and very hard. Its special molecular structure makes it almost indestructible, because its molecules are relatively static, so that it hardly conducts heat and kinetic energy. This feature allows it to absorb heat, energy and kinetic energy. Steve's shield is made of an alloy containing vibrating gold, and Ultron once used vibrating gold to build his body. You should have experienced it. Quote. After some explanation, Tony was shocked, as if he remembered something. I remembered, I once saw a description of this metal in my father's notes. At the time I thought this metal did not exist on the Earth, so I didn't care. Shiete, it turns out that Ultron's body is made of this metal, which is why he is so powerful. Where did he find so much vibrating gold? In the battle a year ago, he confronted Ultron head-on. The opponent's body of steel was indestructible. No matter how he bombed, he couldn't defeat the opponent, and he seemed to be able to absorb energy. So this was the reason. Thinking of this, he quickly asked, Yami, how much Zhenjin do you have? Yang Ming sighed. Oh, not much, only 3 or 4 caddies. 1 gram of vibrating gold was rewarded for destroying a mechanical soldier. 3 days ago, he detonated about 2,000 mechanical soldiers in one breath and rewarded 4 caddies of vibrating gold. So. What? Tony exclaimed. Enough, only Zhenjin can break Zhenjin's defense. Although Ultron's body is made of Zhenjin, we don't need to create the same Zhenjin body, we only need to create a sharp weapon. Quote. Halfway through the conversation, Tony's face suddenly darkened. No, there are countless mechanical soldiers in the world. As long as there is one mechanical soldier alive, even if Ultron's body disappears, his consciousness will always exist. It cannot be completely eliminated. This is the reason why Ultron is really powerful. Yang Ming patted the other person on the shoulder and comforted him. Don't worry, you are not alone now. I know, we're a team. No, I mean, you're not alone. Tony, Yummy, your jokes are really not funny. Yang Ming shrugged. Well, you may not understand now, but you will understand later. Perhaps in the near future, a new turn will come from other multiverses. There must be a way to block the Ultron network. Okay, Tony, now I need you to improve my battle suit. Just use these vibrating gold. As Yang Ming said, he threw out a few cards, and the door of space descended in front of Tony. Seeing this, Tony touched the door of space curiously. Yummy, I've wanted to ask you for a long time, what kind of technology is this? I don't know much about plug-in technology. Tony reached out and stroked the suit in the space gate. His expression moved slightly. This is a suit made of nanotechnology. Yes, now that there is vibranium, I want to replace the nano suit with vibranium suit. But I have just studied nanotechnology. Vibration gold is too special. I may not be able to create a nano-vibrating gold battle suit. No, you don't need to use nanotechnology, you only need to use metal weaving technology. It is best to use the characteristics of vibrating metal to absorb kinetic energy and turn it into energy to increase strength and speed. The reason why Wakanda's Black Panther suit is strong is not because of the use of nanotechnology, but because of the use of special metal weaving technology, so that the entire vibrating gold suit has the ability to absorb kinetic energy and store it as energy, enhance all-round attributes, and even launch long-range attacks. Nanotechnology just makes the vibrating gold suit easier to carry. Moreover, there are many limitations in creating nanometals with vibrating gold. Vibranium's energy-absorbing properties make it impossible to create overly complex weapons. Just like Tony's steel armor, Tony in the main universe doesn't use vibrating gold to build the armor, not because he can't afford it. The biggest advantage of iron armor is its full firepower, stable output and strong mobility. If vibrating gold is used to build a battle armor, many weapons and equipment in the battle armor will not be able to function due to the energy-absorbing properties of vibrating gold. Except for a stiff shell, other aspects are like an invincible super soldier, which is not worth the candle. Most importantly, vibranium's shape cannot be changed once it is generated, making it very cost-effective to make shields. But Tony's Mark Armor series is updated too quickly, and a lot of vibrating gold will be wasted. In the final analysis, it seems that it is because I can't afford too much vibrating gold. The spider suit does not require too complicated technology, and using vibrating gold to increase the kinetic energy attribute is the most suitable solution for Spider-Man's power. Regarding Yang Ming's request, Tony thought about it and found that he should be able to do this. No problem, absorbing kinetic energy for storage and use is not difficult to do. By the way, Yami, it seems that you still have a nano-metal suit. Don't you need to improve the flying suit? Asked Tony. Yang Ming shook his head. I don't need it for now, that suit is not suitable for Zhenjin's characteristics. The advantage of the nano-suits of the 3 generations of little spiders is that they have various functions, and replacing them with vibrating gold will lose their original advantages. The most suitable for Zhenjin is the 1st generation spider suit. With the increase in kinetic energy absorbed, the strength, speed, and defense are simply impeccable. Of course, Zhenjin is not omnipotent and has its own weaknesses. But Yang Ming has more than one set of battle suits. As long as they are not all Zhenjin battle suits, no one can target him. After narrating the suit improvement plan again, Yang Ming thought about it and gave Tony all the technical information stored on Friday. Tony in the main universe is much more mature and stable than the Iron Man in front of him, and the technology he studies is also more advanced, which should be able to help a lot. He is just a scumbag in this regard, not as good as these top students who research black technology at every turn. It doesn't matter if you don't know, as long as you leave the professional things to professional people and achieve your goals. This is what he learned from his ex-girlfriend. As the night fell, the cruise ship slowly moved forward on the calm sea, the fire in the armor room splashed from time to time, and the sound of mechanical operation could be heard endlessly. On the deck, Yang Ming leisurely hit the wooden dummy in front of him, getting familiar with his increasingly powerful body. Jessica was still fishing by the boat. At this time, the sky over New York was covered with dark clouds, which was terribly gloomy. Boom! Suddenly, a thunderbolt pierced the night sky, the void trembled, and a crack appeared on the roof of the building out of thin air. Crack, crack, the dimensional rift disappeared in a flash, and the sound of the high heels colliding with the ground was clear and rhythmic. A brown-haired woman in a professional skirt and formal attire walked out of the darkness. She walked to the edge of the roof and looked down at the neon city below. Her sky-blue pupils shrank slightly, and soon caught the mechanical figure in the city. A look of surprise flashed across his face. How is it possible? It's Ultron soldiers. Her tone was slightly raised, and her beautiful face became dignified. The dimensional rift that suddenly appeared brought her here. Was it a conspiracy or... DD. At this moment, a high-altitude patrol drone flew over, and the camera was aimed at the woman on the rooftop. Beep. Facial recognition failed. DD discovered the forces of the rebel army and applied for justice to kill them. The flames of the mechanical library not far away shot up into the sky, and the mechanical soldiers were very efficient, and they swept to the roof of the building in less than a minute. Beep. Start the righteous killing. There was a red light in the eyes of the mechanical soldier, and the weapon on his right arm was aimed at the woman, and the blue energy quickly condensed. Justice. Are you worthy? The woman smiled sarcastically, reached out and took out a prototype luminous body device from her pocket. Arc reactor. Crack. She twisted the prototype reactor in reverse, and the light of the reactor suddenly exploded. As she placed the reactor on her chest, a large amount of liquid metal flowed out of the reactor and quickly built a mechanical skeleton, wrapping her uneven and fiery figure. The blue and silver armor quickly condensed, and the shimmering blue and silver armor looked like the brightest star in the night sky. The whole process of putting on the nanometal armor was completed in less than a second. The only one who can represent justice is me. Iron Man, Morgan Stark. Quote. The confident light in her eyes seemed to be able to penetrate the night, and as the silver metal mask closed, the light in her eyes suddenly turned into a laser weapon and shot out. Boom! The blue energy beam collided with the laser, and was quickly covered and submerged by the laser. The body of the mechanical soldier exploded, and sporadic debris scattered white smoke onto the city. The moment the mechanical soldiers were wiped out, the red light of the mechanical library instantly lit up, and a large number of mechanical soldiers came upon hearing the news, and soon filled the sky above the building roof. Hey, it's a cobbled-together piece of rubbish. Morgan Stark's tone was disdainful. The nanometal on the back separated a triangular mechanical floating device, and the laser energy was condensed in an instant. Boom! In the night sky, gorgeous fireworks illuminate the city. The next day, Brooklyn, New York. Yang Ming and others came to New York on a cruise ship, put on special human-made silicone masks and went to the poverty relief station. Tony, this thing of yours is pretty easy to use, and it hasn't attracted the attention of the monitoring equipment. Yang Ming looked at the mirror in his hand, touched the silicone mask on his face, and curled his lips slightly. It was convenient, but not handsome enough. Tony looked at the simple housing building not far away. His face was full of thoughts, and he said absent-mindedly, the owners of these faces are all real in reality, so they will not attract the attention of the Ultron program. After finishing speaking, he raised his feet and walked towards the housing building, but stopped to think after taking 2 steps. He tore off the mask, tidied up his appearance. His face was full of anxiety, and the cramped and flustered face was visible to the naked eye. Yummy, can you look at me like this? He straightened his back, straightened his suit and tie, and acted as calmly as possible. Yang Ming rolled his eyes. Tony, you are going home to see your wife and children, not on a date. I know, but I just can't help being nervous. On the side, Jessica suddenly pointed behind Tony and said, I can see the nervousness, and they can see it too. What? Tony looked back subconsciously, and saw Pepper holding Sophie standing not far away covering his mouth and crying. Sophie broke away from his mother's hand and ran towards him with a bright smile on his face. Yeah, Daddy's back. Under the sun, Sophie's smile is like a flower. The picture that appeared in countless dreams finally appeared in front of his eyes, and Tony was in a trance. At this moment, the tension and apprehension on his face instantly turned into tenderness, and the guilt in his eyes intensified. Finally, he took a deep breath, summoned up the courage to slowly open his arms, squatted down and hugged Sophie who was running wildly. Sophie, I love you. Tony said with tears in his eyes and a trembling tone. Sophie rubbed Tony's stubble affectionately. He, Daddy, I love you too. I love you 1,000 times. Then I love you 2,000 times. I love you 3,000 times. Tony came to Pepper with Sophie in his arms, and the two looked at each other. After a long time, Tony said slowly, Sorry, I'm late. Pepper wiped the moisture from the corners of his eyes, stepped forward and hugged the father and daughter, sobbing, It's not too late, it will never be too late. The family of 3 was reunited. At this tender moment, Yang Ming suddenly said coldly, Ahem, Tony, I think you should chat in another place. He pointed to the mechanical soldiers who came quickly in the air. Seeing this, Happy, who was happy for the boss's family reunion, yelled, Chiete, our disguise has failed. Tony just tore off the mask. Jessica reminded blankly. Happy's fat face froze. Tony is the boss, what can he do? Jessica, take them away and leave it to me. Yang Ming stood up and said. Tony guarded his wife and daughter behind him, and said solemnly, No, this is New York, and there are too many mechanical soldiers. Then go to the underground city. Tony seemed to think of something. Okay, I know there is an underground city in Flushing, Queens, and there is an old friend of mine there, so let's go there. As he said that, he was about to summon the steel armor on the cruise ship on the coast. Don't use the armor. There is a tower in New York that restricts the flight of the armor, and the armor's target is too big. Yang Ming reminded. Then how do we get to Flushing? Yang Ming rubbed his chin. How about you take a taxi? Happy roared angrily. Yami, what are you kidding? We drove here by ourselves, why should we take a taxi? Quote. Yang Ming. No, Yami, look quickly, the mechanical soldiers don't seem to be coming towards us. Jessica pointed to the flickering flames high in the sky. Yang Ming took a closer look. Sure enough, these mechanical soldiers were not coming for them, they seemed to be chasing someone. Boom! Suddenly, energy erupted from the tip of the city tower, and circles of blue light waves swept away, quickly spreading across the entire city. Anti-armor electromagnetic waves. Tony's face changed. This is the air restriction device that Yami said. Ultron finally made this thing. Hearing Tony's words, Yang Ming's mouth twitched. So, this thing is only for iron armor. Tony nodded. Besides me, there is another person who knows the best armor technology in this world, and that is Ultron. He is an artificial intelligence created by me. I store all the data in his head, so he knows every detail of the armor. Quote. Yang Ming rolled his eyes. I've done my own crimes, I can't live. Yami, I can understand Chinese. Tony said bitterly. I know. Oh, look, Tony, that's iron armor. Little Pepper suddenly exclaimed, pointing to the explosion in the sky with a face full of shock. Everyone looked up, and saw more and more mechanical soldiers gathering in the sky. The blue electromagnetic wave did not sweep down the enemies in the sky, but seemed to irritate them. The dazzling white laser instantly overshadowed the brilliance of the sun, shooting indiscriminately a group of mechanical soldiers. Boom! Explosions occurred one after another at high altitude, and the bursting flames spread rapidly among the mechanical soldiers. Broken mechanical fragments scattered all over the sky, and the pungent scorched stench swept across the city along with the heat wave. Above the smoky city, the energy jets under the feet of the blue-silver battle armor floated into the air, and the triangular energy device flew back and turned into nano-metal against the back. The light of the arc reactor on the chest was slightly dim. Under the silver mask, Morgan Stark gasped heavily, his forehead was covered with sweat, and his face became paler. The whole night, the high-intensity battle not only consumed most of the energy of the brand-new arc reactor, but her physical strength was also severely overdrawn, and she couldn't last long. Things were more serious than she imagined. Ultron ruled the world, and the number of mechanical soldiers far exceeded her imagination. In addition, her carelessness caused the artificial intelligence Edith to be locked by Ultron. No matter where she hid, they will all be found by mechanical soldiers, and they can only fight uninterruptedly. Fortunately, my armor has been upgraded dozens of times. Both battery life and firepower output are much stronger than my father's armor, and the power system has also been improved, so it has not been targeted by weird electromagnetic waves. Otherwise, once it falls into the city, wait, her only ending is with her father. No, her father died to save half of the life in the universe, but she could only die aggrieved under the gunfire of these mechanical soldiers. She is not worthy to be compared with her father. Dee, execute justice. A new round of mechanical soldiers attacked again. Morgan Stark tried to adjust his state, braced himself to fight, and at the same time thought about the next step. Beep. Detected the signal frequency of the second-generation Smart Friday. Suddenly, the familiar roar of energy struck, and Edith's reminder made her heart tremble, and her face became extremely complicated. Is he the father of this world? Morgan's body trembled, and the childhood images came to mind again. Good night, Morgan, I love you 1,000 times. Then I love Dad more than 3,000 times. Morgan, I actually love you, more than 3,000 times. Morgan took a deep breath and turned his head slowly. Father of this world, you are all right. Looking at the Spider-Man flying towards her quickly, she was stunned, and the complex emotions in her heart disappeared instantly. What is this guy? When did Peter Parker get wings? This fool usually looks like an idiot, but when he puts on the battle suit, he immediately becomes a chatterbox, and even chased him into this world. It's really annoying. Peter, don't think I won't recognize you with wings. Morgan hadn't finished speaking, but Peter didn't stop to say hello at all. He flew past her with whistling wings and deliberately knocked her away, with a very arrogant attitude. You ate Uncle Banner's giant guts, and dared to hit me. You will die when you go back. Morgan gritted her teeth, and took out a small notebook in her heart to remember this incident clearly. When she had the chance, she would make the Peter cry and beg her not to deduct her salary. She is now in charge of the financial power of the Avengers Alliance, and the one she can control the most in the alliance is this senior, who is not much older than her, because few of the other members are short of money. Everyone knows that Spider-Man is the poorest superhero. But what happened the next moment made her feel unbelievable, wondering if this guy was Peter. The mechanical depots in various areas of New York continued to emit flames, and a large number of mechanical soldiers quickly approached the direction of the two. Compared with besieging the mechanical soldier legion sent by Morgan, the posture at this moment was better. Looking at the mechanical soldiers who were quickly surrounded, Yang Ming waved his anti-gravity wings and floated high in the sky, and said calmly, "It's not bad, and a few caddies of vibration gold have arrived." After speaking, Yang Ming stretched out his finger to the sky, and the liquid metal quickly wrapped his palm and condensed into a nano-metal glove. There are grooves on the 5 knuckles of the metal gloves and the back of the hand respectively. The golden gloves exude gorgeous light, showing off nobility and mystery all the time. Infinity Gauntlet. Morgan's expression became strange when he saw this. Without infinity gems, infinity gauntlets are useless, and she has a bunch of these infinity gauntlets made of earth metal, and this fool Peter stole my toy again. Immediately afterwards, as the intense purple light suddenly bloomed, Morgan's face became dull. Ding! As soon as Yang Ming took out the purple gem fragments, the low-end infinite glove made by Tony for him stayed up all night to instantly absorb the power gem fragments in one of the grooves. The burden is greatly reduced instantly. In this way, although the power of the gemstone will not be fully exerted, it will not make Yang Ming have to stop and change his name after a punch, and his stamina will increase dramatically. Boom! The infinity gauntlet was boosted by the power gem, and the purple halo instantly distorted the void, and the sun in the sky dimmed. Surrounded by purple light, Yang Ming was like the legendary god of war, breaking through the sound barrier with a boom. His body was like a purple meteor flying at a high speed, wantonly shuttled through the army of mechanical soldiers. Boom! Bang bang bang! Every time the purple light shuttles through, a series of explosions will be set off. The mechanical soldiers have no power to resist. In the face of absolute power, their steel bodies are as fragile as egg shells. In just half a minute, the mechanical soldiers had been cleared of large areas, and the light streaks left by the purple meteors over New York crisscrossed and lingered in the sky for a long time. Countless citizens looked up at the spider-like purple light streaks, and then looked at the ruins of soldier parts were shocking. They know that the world has once again ushered in war, and there is also hope. Hey, this blue iron man with a bulging front and back, is he shocked by my chic figure, wild straight line acceleration, charming way of dismantling iron, and the golden baby in my hand? In the air, the sluggish Morgan was awakened by a bunch of trash talking. She turned to look at Yang Ming, who was slowly putting away the infinity gauntlet. Her tone was unbelievable. "It's a power gem. How did you find it? Also, you are not Peter. Who are you?" Morgan's horrified face was full of curiosity. Yang Ming floated in the air, casually patted the stain on his shoulder. "It's just a gem lover passing by, you don't need to remember. By the way, I think there is someone you should meet, maybe you are familiar with him." Without waiting for the other party's reaction, Yang Ming called the artificial intelligence by himself. "Friday, turn on the navigation, the destination is Queens, New York, and the underground city of Flushing." "Okay, sir." Last time in the underground city of Robintown, Yang Ming got some entrance locations of the underground city from Tombs, including the specific information of the underground city of Flushing. Even if Tony didn't say anything, his next destination would be Flushing. When Morgan saw Yang Ming say something inexplicable, she turned and left. She looked at the mechanical ruins scattered in the city, and after thinking about it, she decided to follow him. The spider suit, the power gem, and her father's artificial intelligence Friday, all these drove her to get the answer she wanted from the other party. Most importantly, she was so tired, she shouldn't have to continue fighting with this guy. Flushing is a relatively special area in Queens, New York. In recent years, it has gradually become one of the important gathering places for Asian immigrants, and has developed a prosperous business district with strong Southeast Asian flavor. However, with the advent of Ultron's rule, the prosperity here has gradually disappeared, and the economy has gradually become depressed. Not just Flushing, but more or less all over the world. If they were not forced by life, most of them would not be willing to go out to make a living at the risk of being arrested by Ultron soldiers if they accidentally did something wrong. Shopping, beach, parties, some of the guys yearning for freedom are now eating bark in South Dakota. No one can guarantee that you can keep smiling forever when you are out of the house, and there will be no serious consequences due to emo. Therefore, reducing going out as much as possible is the way to survive. In a gloomy underground garage in Flushing, Tony and the others waited for less than 10 minutes at the door marked with an emergency exit, when they saw Yang Ming walking quickly with a brunette. Yummy, is she? Tony hugged Sophie and looked at the brunette who was walking towards him. Deep down in his heart, he didn't have the slightest thought that a playboy should have, but instead had an indescribable feeling. Just like, he looked at Sophie in his arms inexplicably, well, it really does. Hi, I'm Tony Stark. He greeted. I'm Sophie. The little guy in Tony's arms waved his hands and smiled. Morgan looked at Sophie, who also had brown hair and blue eyes, and then at Tony's face, which was very similar to his memory. The two faces gradually overlapped. Her nose was inexplicably sour, and her eyes gradually became foggy. My name is Morgan. Yes, well, nice to meet you. Her voice was choked with sobs. Tony nodded and smiled. Hi, Morgan, your name is the same as Pepper's uncle. Yes, I also wanted to name Sophie Morgan, what a coincidence. Pepper stepped forward to kiss Sophie on the forehead, and smiled at Tony. Looking at the reunion of the family of three after a long absence, Morgan is sincerely happy for Sophie in this world, and he is really happy to be accompanied by his father. And mommy, she doesn't have to cry every night when she thinks of her father, and she will be happy too. Thinking of this, Morgan's smile became brighter, making Tony and his wife lose their minds for a while. Tony, she looks like Sophie. Pepper whispered. Tony tilted his head and said, actually, I think so too. Pepper kept smiling, and secretly pinched Tony hard. You don't have other women outside, and you only have one daughter, Sophie, right? The pain made Tony smile reluctantly. He quickly turned around and explained in a low voice, Pepper, you are very smart and know that it is impossible for me to have such a big daughter. Pepper sneered. Not necessarily, I heard that you have already handed in at the age of 14. Before he finished speaking, Tony's face changed, and he booed quickly. Pepper, Sophie is here, can you make a good impression of my father? See your performance. Oh, Yami is right, women can't. Can't what? Pepper's eyes widened, a naked threat. Tony looked up at the sky. It's nothing, Yami said women shouldn't be angry all the time, they age quickly. You think I'm old? No, that's not what I meant. You'd better explain. Got you. Tony turned his gaze to Yang Ming, only to see Yang Ming gave him a self-seeking look, turned around and motioned for Morgan to go aside for a private chat. Jessica, who was behind everyone, kept silent. She stared at the exquisite Morgan and kept looking at her. From time to time, she compared her figure and found that there seemed to be no difference. In addition to being a little bigger, the hair is a little longer, a little warped, and a little whiter. Seeing Yang Ming whispering to the other party aside from herself, she snorted and was about to step forward to join the chat group. Hey, Jessica, what are you going to do? Happy stopped Jessica with a mean smile on his face. Yami has already taken the initiative, you can't spoil his good deeds. Really? Jessica was gearing up, with unkind eyes, and grabbed Happy by the collar. What are you going to do? It's nothing, I just want to practice boxing. Do not. Happy looked terrified, like a child who was dragged into a corner without any resistance, and Tony couldn't bear to cry for help. He turned around holding Sophie, and then blocked her ears. On the other side, Yang Ming looked at Morgan in front of him and asked curiously, since you know this is a parallel world, why didn't you tell them your identity? Morgan shook his head. No need, parallel worlds are parallel worlds, I'm still not their Sophie, and neither are they. Speaking of this, she smiled bitterly. A complete family does not allow outsiders to disturb, I don't want to cause trouble for them. How do you know they can't accept you if you don't try? Yang Ming said. Morgan still shook his head and did not continue to discuss this topic. You asked me to come here, you didn't just want to talk about this, did you? I do want to know one thing. What? Yang Ming looked at Morgan. You seem to be locked by mechanical soldiers, it should be that your artificial intelligence has been invaded by Ultron Network. The attack of Ultron Network cannot be resisted by artificial intelligence. Under normal circumstances, your armor should be controlled by Ultron. Why can you persist until now? Quote. For Yang Ming's question, Morgan has no answer until now. She recalled the situation at that time, and said, because of my carelessness, Edith was indeed invaded by Ultron Network very quickly. but just when Ultron was about to succeed, a mysterious force stopped Ultron network, so only then can we escape. Mysterious power. What is it? Yang Ming narrowed his eyes slightly. Morgan shook his head. I don't know. Edith sensed Ultron's unwillingness at the time, so I guess something stopped him. Yang Ming was thoughtful, unreconciled emotions. It seems that there is indeed something wrong with Ultron. What did you find? Morgan asked. Yang Ming smiled and said, I have made a lot of noise since I came to this world, but I still haven't seen Ao Chuang search the world on the internet, and Ao Chuang himself has never appeared. So you guess something went wrong with Ultron? Yes, after your dictation, I am more sure about this. So what? So, Yang Ming sneered. With 2 Fridays and your Edith, you should be able to compete with Ao Chuang network. Hearing this, Morgan woke up like a dream, and his face was overjoyed. That's right, the power of the 3 artificial intelligences will definitely be able to snatch the control of the mechanical soldiers, and they can also confine the Ultron network to their own mechanical bodies. By the way, I haven't asked which world you are from. Why is there a nano suit made by my father for Peter? She asked curiously. Seeing Morgan's appearance, Yang Ming couldn't help but feel mischievous. He suddenly reached out and patted Morgan's head, and said kindly, Little Morgan, in another world, Tony is my good friend, and I'm your favorite Uncle Yami. What? Morgan was stunned. I call this guy uncle. Seeing that the other party didn't react, Yang Ming decided to add fire. You love Pepper 700 times at most, and Tony 3,000 times, but for me, that's 1,000,000 times. Yang Ming said seriously. 1,000,000 times. Morgan looked disbelieving. Impossible, is the other me mentally retarded? Little Morgan, at that time Tony was busy saving the world, and Pepper was busy managing the company, so I took care of you all the time. I changed your diaper, fed you, bathed you, and... Yang Ming counted the piles one by one with his fingers, finally moving Morgan's face. Is all of this true? Morgan was deeply moved and envied his happy self in another world. Wrong. Suddenly, she came to her senses and frowned. You are a man, what are you feeding on? My ex-girlfriend. She found a nanny. Is it? Of course, I never lie to children. But you haven't told me why you have Peter's suit. This is the latest generation of spider flight suit your father gave me, isn't it not bad? Morgan's tone was sarcasm. It seems that your relationship is quite good. This kind of nanotechnology is not even comparable to Peter's. My timeline is ahead, and it's normal that technology can't keep up. Yang Ming explained, recalling what he said just now. It is not as good as Peter's battle suit. It seems that Morgan's timeline is indeed much later, and he is more mature in the use of various technologies. Peter Parker's battle suit in that world has also been upgraded many times. Obviously, Morgan in front of him is very familiar with Peter's battle suit, and it is very likely that she has also participated in the improvement of the suit. Tony's daughter will not be far behind. In this way, maybe another engineer who understands nanotechnology can improve his suit, provided that the other party is willing. Thinking of this, Yang Ming said seriously, for the official introduction, my name is Yang Ming, an Avenger dedicated to saving the multiverse. I also officially introduce myself. My name is Morgan Stark. I am the only daughter of Iron Man Tony Stark, who once saved half of the life in the universe. I am the 2nd generation of Iron Man. Morgan's face was full of pride. Seeing this, Yang Ming raised his mouth slightly. Since he is the 2nd generation Iron Man, he probably wouldn't mind joining my team and saving the world together. Your team? Morgan wondered. I forgot to tell you, Yang Ming, the founder of the Multi-Avenger Alliance. Gathered 5 Spider-Man, 4 Iron Men, 3 Hulks, 2 Thors. There is another Thanos. Quote, Yang Ming raised his head at a 45-degree angle, bluffing the other party. How is it possible? You have been to so many worlds. Morgan covered his mouth in shock. This power is beyond everyone's imagination, let alone a Thanos. She knew that this Thanos was not the Thanos, and maybe not as powerful as the Thanos back then, but it was still incredible enough. You can travel through parallel worlds, so can you show me to them? Morgan asked hopefully. Speaking of meeting, Yang Ming couldn't help but twitch his cheeks. Most of his words were bragging, and his purpose was to fool the other party into joining his team. Where is he going to find Thanos? Ahem, of course, but they are very busy, I can only let you meet my Spider-Man team. No problem, I want to meet the other Peters too. As soon as Morgan finished speaking, Jessica rubbed her fists and walked over with a relaxed face. I'm going to disappoint you. There are only 3 Peters, and the other 2 are big beauties. Morgan looked at each other. You are. I am Spider-Man, Jessica. Jessica imitated Yang Ming's expression when she pretended to be aggressive, and threw off her coat, revealing a white top and black spider suit. Wow, female Spider-Man. Morgan was delighted to see Lai Shin, and became even more curious about the other 4 Spider-Man. Yummy, let me meet them. No problem. Yang Ming took a deep breath, and 4 cards appeared in his hand, praying that there would be no mistakes this time. The gray dimensional wall brushed across the underground garage, and 4 figures slowly emerged, attracting the 3 members of Tony's family. Oh, yummy, wait for me to put on my battle suit. Extraordinary Peter, that is, Peter number 2 was shirtless and looked around, and hurriedly put on his battle clothes. He looked around in embarrassment, looking for something to cover up. The middle-aged Peter blushed and covered his body with his battle suit. Don't look at me, I can't help you. On the side, Peter had already called for the Venom to wrap his body, and mocked the 2 of them wantonly. Ha ha ha, you are no longer clean, so no matter how experienced Spider-Man is, he still has to take off his battle clothes when he sleeps. Idiot. Behind her, Gwen rolled her eyes. She was wearing pajamas and had no intention of changing into a battle suit at all. She turned her head to look at Tony and the others, and her eyes instantly locked on Morgan next to Yang Ming. Yummy, who is she? Gwen's tone was inexplicably hostile. Legend has it that beautiful women and beautiful women are natural enemies. This is true of ordinary women, and so is Spider-Man. Peter took a step back, moved closer to the other 2 Peters, grinned and said, haha, there's a good show to watch. But he didn't expect that before Morgan could speak, Yang Ming said first, she is a new member of our team, Morgan Stark. Yes, I'm Morgan, nice to meet you. Morgan subconsciously answered the call without refusing, and the system prompt immediately sounded in Yang Ming's ear. Hey, it's done. Yang Ming snickered in his heart. Ding. Multiple Avengers members +1, reward blank card X1. Blank card. Can store a set of battle armor, suit. Good stuff. Yang Ming laughed. Good for what? Gwen crossed her arms and looked at Morgan. Morgan also noticed that something was wrong with the other party, and her smile slowly retracted. In fact, she also didn't like the other party. The 2 people who were not afraid of things made the atmosphere of the scene freeze, but after Yang Ming said something in Gwen's ear, Gwen immediately stopped and apologized with a smile on his face. Sorry, Morgan, I like to joke around, and you mustn't mind. Morgan. She looked stunned, and let Gwen hold her hand and hug her intimately, completely unclear why the other party suddenly changed his attitude. Yummy, what did you say to her? Peter pulled Yang Ming aside, his face full of disbelief. If he learned this trick, he would not be afraid of Mary's anger in the future. Middle-aged Peter also looked eager. If he learned this trick, he would not be afraid of his second wife divorcing him in the future. Peter number 2 also moved his head curiously. If he learns this trick, he won't be afraid in the future. No, I don't have a girlfriend or a wife. At this time, Tony put down Sophie in his arms without a trace, and joined the conversation between the men. Ahem, Yummy, I want to know too. Yang Ming. Okay, I'll tell you. The 4 of them listened attentively and looked serious. Yang Ming grinned. Actually, I just said that you are more beautiful than her. What? The 4 of them looked at each other in disbelief. Impossible, you can get rid of Gwen with just 1 sentence, it's impossible. Very likely. Suddenly, Pepper stuck his head out and joined the chat group, and everyone was startled. The woman is so scary, our spider sensor didn't find her. Peter II was shocked. Idiot, the spider sensor only warns of danger, not women. Peter cursed secretly, then looked at Tony. I haven't introduced it yet, I'm Peter Parker, the most popular Spider-Man. Nice to meet you, I'm Tony Stark. Hi, I'm Peter Parker too. I'm Peter Parker. The other 2 Peters introduced themselves. Suddenly, Tony felt old and had auditory hallucinations. Boom. Suddenly, the entrance of the underground city of Flushing, that is, the safety exit not far away, was violently shaken. Blazing flames broke through the gate, and a severely burned figure flew upside down and hit everyone's feet. Steel, Iron Man. The visitor was on the verge of death, weakly pointing at Yang Ming. I'm Iron Man. Tony hurriedly stepped forward to help the opponent's head, his face solemn. What happened in the underground city? Seeing Tony's face, the man's eyes widened suddenly, and he yelled in horror, No, Iron Man, the devil. Then he twitched and fell silent. Hey, make it clear. Tony put the man down, stood up and said, Something went wrong. I know. Yang Ming pouted, motioning for everyone to turn around. The man of steel coming out of the fire made a familiar mechanical sound, and Tony and Morgan both looked ugly at the same time. Mark Series armor. Testimonials. It's finally going to be on the shelves again. It's not easy. According to the process, of course, I would like to thank the editor in charge of Blu-ray Dada. This book is a mediocre follow-up, and it can't even be uploaded on 6 channels. Brother Guang pushed a free page app before it was put on the shelves, so that the collection exceeded. Thank you new and old readers for following up. Although you are eager to lock me in a small black room to code words, force me to dress up as women, and even ask me for an address to send blades. It is very unfriendly, but thank you very much. Hey, because you are about to save my poverty. Omega. Ask for the first order on the shelves, ask for subscriptions for daily operations, sell badly. I'm miserable, and I don't need to sell it to know that the hair I lose can make a bird's nest. Birds can lay eggs when they make nests, but I just beg the beauties to add an egg to my kengshuefu noodle bucket, and I would like to add a ham sausage if possible. I put the book group in the introduction, and you can join the group by clicking on it. Welcome to the group to update. It exploded 5 times on the day it was put on the shelves. If the first order is, 1 more will be added. The average price increases by +1 change. The first order of 20 is equivalent to a receipt ratio of 1:2. If the book is still passable, this is probably the case. If the receipt ratio is lower, it means that the situation is serious. Of course, there will definitely be no eunuchs after it is put on the shelves, and the professional ethics has become extremely strong because of poverty. If one day I find the eunuch, it's not because I gave up, but because I found the ultimate goal of life, a rich woman. Finally, I beg the pretty boys to give me a first order, more subscriptions, and more support. If the grades are acceptable, women's clothing can also be accepted. Omega. Kakaka. The white eyes, the classic gold and red color scheme, the burly steel body, the arc reactor on the chest, and the familiar armor slowly walked out from the flames. Both Tony and Morgan had an ominous premonition in their hearts. Oh, Yummy, this guy is very similar to yours. Peter laughed. Yang Ming glanced at Peter. This guy is in your hands. No, let me do this thing. Tony took a step forward, tapped the watch device, and the cruise ship far away on the coast burst into flames, and the steel armor galloped at the speed of sound. He doesn't allow it to destroy the world with Mark armor. That's too late. Seeing Mark's battle armor raise his hand to condense the energy pulse, Morgan suddenly stepped forward and took out the arc reactor under Tony's inexplicable gaze. Crack. Reversely twisting the arc reactor, a large amount of nanometal quickly covered the body, and the mechanical skeleton quickly condensed into a blue-silver battle armor along with the armor. Buzz. Wearing nano armor, the silver metal mask is closed, and the eyes are shining. Morgan raised his hand, and the nanometal on his arm squirmed and turned into a reinforced hand cannon. Boom. The white laser and the energy pulse were fired at the same time, and the energy collided with a dazzling light. The violent energy impact caused the underground garage to tremble. However, the white laser light quickly overwhelmed the energy pulse, and the Mark armor was shattered into a pile of scrap iron under the laser damage. Morgan Stark, I guessed right. Looking at the blue battle armor in front of him, Tony opened his mouth, his eyes full of tenderness. Morgan trembled when he heard Tony's words. She turned around slowly, with a complicated expression. You found out a long time ago. Of course, Yami mentioned the multiverse. I'm a man cursed by knowledge. How could I not recognize you? Tony laughed. Yang Ming briefly described another Tony's deeds to him, and Thanos lines were used easily. Father, no, let's call you Tony. It's fine, actually, I think. Just as Tony took a step, he wanted to hug this daughter who had lost her father since childhood, but the next moment, he saw a part of the battle armor flying towards him and slapped him on the butt. Tony shook his old waist, and the picture became funny. Haha, I'm not very good at this, he explained with a red face. Boom, ding. With the armor parts arriving one after another, Tony finally breathed a sigh of relief as he successfully finished dressing the armor. It should work now. Daddy, I don't want you to hold other children. Sophie suddenly trotted forward, hugged her father tightly, and looked at Morgan vigilantly, making Morgan dumbfounded. Sophie, she's not another child. Pepper came to Tony and held Sophie in her arms. She looked at the blue armor on Morgan's body and smiled slightly. It seems that all Tonys like to design armor for their loved ones. Yes, Mommy, no, Pepper, Morgan said with a smile. He will be a good husband, a good father, a qualified avenger, and a true hero. Not necessarily. Not all Tonys are heroes, come and see. Yang Ming came near the wreckage of the battle armor, and interrupted the family conversation that had just been upgraded to a family of 4 at an inappropriate time. He pointed to the dense mechanical circuits in the wreckage of the armor, and frowned. This is the remote-controlled Mark armor. What? Tony heard the words and immediately stepped forward, scanning the surrounding armor wreckage. His tone was surprised. This kind of technology is still in my imagination. Ultron is just a program. It is impossible to have human creativity. How can it be possible to create this kind of armor in advance? First. Then there is only one possibility. Morgan's tone trembled. There are other guys in this world who know how to make Mark armor. Is it Ivan Vanke? Or that old fellow Stan? Tony frowned. No, Stan is dead. Even if it is Stan in the multiverse, he even has to rob the reactor. It is impossible to have this ability to create a remote-controlled Mark armor. Then, he said, it's impossible for Ivan Vanke. He works in S.H.I.E.L.D., and Ultron will not give him the opportunity to study this kind of armor, and his long-range armor cannot achieve this kind of precision. Who could it be? After excluding the suspects, Morgan was left to think hard. She couldn't think of anyone other than them who could make this armor. At this time, Yang Ming said, I think you should have overlooked one thing. Tony's Warframe summoning only needs a signal point, while the remote control of the Warframe requires a real connection to the network. If Ultron didn't do it, then it shows a very serious problem. As soon as these words came out, the two seemed to think of something. That guy cooperated with Ultron, or the Ultron network crashed. Tony's face was ugly. The second guess is obviously impossible, so there is only the first possibility. Morgan gritted his teeth. The 3 artificial intelligences are very likely to suppress the Ultron network, but if we add that existence, our chances of winning will be infinitely reduced. There is another point, why the magnetic field of the underground city fails. Anyway, we must go to the underground city to see the situation. Quote. Yang Ming tilted his ears, and his sensitive hearing allowed him to detect the sound of battle coming from the entrance. Jessica, you protect Sophie and Pepper, the others follow me. As Yang Ming said, the nanometal quickly covered the body and plunged into the scorched entrance. Wahaha, I ate my head again, buddy, let's catch up. Venom woke up and shouted excitedly. Hey dude, don't be impulsive, I'm not ready yet. No need to prepare, it will be gone if you go late. That thing is iron, no meat. I want to try it without meat. Seeing that the Venom controlled Peter's body and followed into the entrance, Morgan was a little surprised. Is that the alien parasite Venom? Why are they so harmonious? The middle-aged Peter said with a smile. Actually, that guy is not bad. Of course, the premise is that he didn't follow the wrong master. Then, he put on his mask and followed the 2 of them. I'm going in too. Wait for me. Peter the Second and Gwen followed up successively. Morgan and Tony looked at each other, and then left. Dad, you have to come back early. Sophie shouted from behind. I will. Jessica came to the side of the mother and daughter and shrugged helplessly. Let's go to a safe place. I feel that the enemy this time is not so easy to deal with. By the way, there's Happy. Flushing Underground City. As soon as Yang Ming flew out from the entrance of the passage, he saw energy pulses raging everywhere at a glance. The midair of the underground city was fighting with the ground. The Mark series armor that can be seen everywhere was fighting with the guards of the underground city. The armed force of the underground city is the Hawkeye guards trained by Hawkeye. They are good at fighting the enemy with alloy bows and arrows, piercing Yang with 100 steps, and have a very high hit rate. Damage to electronic equipment. But the firepower coverage of the Mark armor is very wide, and the power of energy pulse is far better than that of ordinary thermal weapons. The strength of the guard team is particularly weak under the offensive of the Mark armor army. Call out. At this time, a sharp arrow made of alloy suddenly shot out. Yang Ming reacted quickly, holding the arrow body casually, and grinning. How powerful this thing can be depends on me passing by. No. The alloy arrow in his hand suddenly flashed red dots, and Yang Ming's smile froze. This thing looks like it's going to explode. Boom. The violent flames covered Yang Ming. As soon as Peter and others arrived in the underground city, they saw Yang Ming being blown away by the explosion, and then surrounded by senior guards who had just arrived on the scene. The senior guards are the elite archers trained by Hawkeye Barton. The alloy arrows they use have been specially modified, which are far superior to ordinary alloy arrows in terms of power and maneuverability. Shish! The random arrows flew together, and the arrows in the sky shot to the ground without aiming. Flame, ice, grid, flying needles and other dazzling attack methods exploded from the alloy arrows, and the Mark armor that cut corners was immediately emptied. Yang Ming just showed his head and was forced to retreat. The sharp arrows continued to erupt sparks with the nanometal on his body, and he was soon overwhelmed by a new round of offensive. Under the bunker full of holes, Yang Ming controlled the nano suit to open a hole, reached in and tore off his white underwear, raised the white flag high, and shouted at the top of his voice. Guys, I'm on my own. Stop. In front of the guards, Clinton Francis Barton in a black battle suit frowned and raised his hand to stop the attack. It's a human being, not a mechanical armor. Boom. At this time, Tony, who was wearing a battle armor, saw a familiar figure, and quickly controlled the battle armor to fly towards the guards. Barton, don't do it, it's me. Tony yelled. Hearing Tony's voice, Barton's face was full of anger, and he cursed, you were the one who beat you. Kill him. Kill Iron Man. Destroy the Iron Demon. Tony appeared, and everyone present immediately pointed their arrows at Tony, as if there was some deep hatred. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Dense arrows came through the air, and the rain of arrows was as thick as dark clouds, blocking all of Tony's escape routes. If he was shot by these arrows, this set of steel armor would not be able to save his life at all. You must know that in order to protect this place, Hawkeye has devoted countless energy to training these archers, in order to protect the homeland and protect his wife and daughter at this moment. No one can spoil all this. Ultron can't do it, and neither can Tony. Wait, I need an explanation. Tony looked at the black rain of arrows in fear, and thought, it's over, barbecue is over. Yami's mantra is really useful. Suddenly, the door of space descended from the sky to block the rain of arrows and explode. Yang Ming looked at the stunned Tony and shouted, what are you doing in a daze, let's go. Yami, didn't you raise the white flag to surrender? That's a tribute to the classics. Do you really think these rotten sweet potatoes and rotten bird eggs can force me to surrender? You are not allowed to insult my friend Barton. I insulted you, so can you go? Go. Boom. The battle armor broke through the arrow rain with a long flame, and Yang Ming called the space gate to intercept the fire bombardment of the arrow explosion, and quickly retreated. Tony, are you okay? Morgan looked at Tony, who had fled back with concern. Yang Ming flew back, teasing and laughing. Hey, Morgan, it seems that we are a team, and you should care about me. Since when are we a team? Haha, forget it. Anyway, the reward has already been obtained, it doesn't matter anymore, Yang Ming thought. What should I do now? Barton doesn't listen to my explanation at all. Tony looked anxious. Yang Ming rubbed his fist. That depends on how you want him to listen to your explanation. Tony was startled. What do you mean? That's what I mean. Yang Ming stretched out his finger to the sky, the dazzling gold covered the palm, and a purple halo emerged. No, Tony refused. The battlefield is too crowded, they will be accidentally injured, and the movement of the power gem is too big, you will blow this place down. I know. Yang Ming put away the gem fragments, shrugged and said, then there is only one way left. What way? Tony listened carefully. It's just. You stick your head out a little bit. Ah, just as Tony stretched out his head, Yang Ming slapped him to the ground with a knife. What are you doing? Tony asked, baring his teeth, touching the sunken armor on the back of his neck. Morgan also had a bad face, and quickly helped Tony up from the ground. We need a plausible explanation. Yang Ming. Ah, I'm sorry, I forgot that you were wearing armor, so I didn't knock you out. Yang Ming explained embarrassingly. Give you to Barton, and he will have a good chat with you when he sees that you are no longer a threat. Is that okay? Tony asked. Of course, people want to know the truth in their bones. Even if they don't believe you, they will definitely talk nonsense before killing you. You can still save the chance. I feel like you did it on purpose. Tony, we are a team, I will not harm you. Watching Barton and the others who came to kill him, Yang Ming motioned for Tony to get ready, and then punched the opponent in the chest. Boom. In an instant, the armor was deeply dented, and the battle armor was bombarded by Yang Ming, revealing the mechanical circuit with sparks flying all over it. Ahem. Yummy, you're too harsh. Tony fell to the ground clutching his chest, his face livid. Yummy, you. Morgan wanted to say something, but Yang Ming gestured and threw Tony to Barton. Barton, everyone is deceived by the demon Tony, and I will hand him over to you now. After speaking, regardless of the other party's reaction, Yang Ming Fidong left and participated in the elimination of the Mark armor. Morgan hesitated for a while, and decided to turn on the armor to observe the situation stealthily. If Tony was really in danger, she would rescue Tony without hesitation. Here, Tony was still thrown by Patton's feet, and he spit out the sand in his mouth quickly, and kept cursing Yang Ming's bad idea in his heart. In case Barton really kills, I, a man cursed by knowledge, really can't wait for Thanos. Tony felt uneasy, while Barton stared at Tony in front of him, closed his eyes and took a deep breath, barely calming down the anger in his heart. Tony, we are friends and comrades in arms. Why did you join Ultron and destroy our homeland? Barton, you know, I'm not that kind of person. Tony smiled as sincerely as possible, trying to evoke the former friendship. HMPH, don't you admit it? Barton reached out his hand, and the person behind him handed him a handheld computer. He pointed the screen at Tony's face, gritted his teeth and said, "Look carefully, this is your letter of challenge." Tony took a closer look, and saw, Tony, on the screen in a neat suit. Behind him the underground city was filled with gunpowder and flames of war, and the Mark armor was destroying everything. My friend Barton in this world, unfortunately, I am here to announce to you that I have reached a cooperation with Ultron. He agrees that I will attack all underground cities and be responsible for the order and operation of all underground cities, including the underground city you are in. There will be true peace in this world. Of course, I don't care about the so-called peace. After being kidnapped that day, I realized the true meaning of life. What I want is absolute power. Only by ruling the whole world can no one pry into my wealth and status. Quote, you must be curious why the magnetic field in the underground city fails, allowing my armor to come in and out at will. Having said that, he turned sideways, and a strangely shaped magnetic field stabilizer appeared in the video. Ha ha ha, have you seen it? This is the trump card for my cooperation with Ultron, a problem that only my great Tony Stark can solve. Sorry, I just came here, I seem to talk too much. Tony spread his hands and looked up at the sky, and the camera zoomed in on the underground urban battlefield behind him. The energy pulse destroyed everything wantonly, the wailing of human beings, the collapse of buildings, and the splashing of gravel all made him close his eyes and enjoy it. Ha ha ha, this is a powerful force. See, Barton, I hope you in this world can help me conquer the world. If you refuse, your end will be the same as theirs, including your wife, daughter. The picture came to an abrupt end, and Barton squatted on the ground pinching Tony's face, the anger in his eyes rising again. Tony, this is your gauntlet. If you want to conquer the world, I will not stop you, but you should not hurt innocent people, even my family members. Barton gritted his teeth and roared, especially Tony's innocent expression made him even more angry. He pointed at the gunpowder smoke on the battlefield, and shouted at the countless corpses that fell in the flames of war. What expression do you have? You want to tell me that you are innocent? Barton, I'm really innocent. I'm not the one who gave you the challenge. Tony came back to his senses and cursed Yang Ming for being unreliable. Who says the multiverse selves won't look the same? How does this guy explain it? Shut up, Tony, you are a complete fool now, don't you dare to admit the good things you have done. Barton, I can explain. That guy is Tony from the multiverse, not me, I'm a good guy. HMPH, multiverse. Tony, I don't understand you more and more. You actually made up lies about the multiverse in order to survive. Barton snorted coldly. A trace of unbearableness flashed in his eyes, but he still raised the arrow in his hand and pointed the sharp arrow at Tony's heart. Seeing this, Tony turned pale. What are you going to do, Barton? I can explain. Yummy, help Yummy, you fool said he wouldn't do it so quickly. It's over, this time it's really barbecue. Yummy's catchphrase still works well. Tony's cry for help, and the nonsense words he learned from who knows where, made Barton more sure that the Tony in front of him had changed, and the former Tony would not ask for help even if he was killed. Goodbye, Tony, my former friend. After all, Barton turned his head and stabbed down with the arrow in his hand. Secretly, Morgan's face changed when he saw this scene, and he was about to manipulate the armor to save people. But the next moment, a round frisbee-shaped object passed by her side first, and accurately knocked the arrow in Barton's hand into the air. Barton, what he said is true. Not far away, Steve knocked down the Mark armor in front of him with a punch, and took back the hovering shield. He saw that the Stars and Stripes armor on his body was in tatters, obviously after a battle. Steve, why are you here? Barton raised his eyebrows and immediately became vigilant. You want to save Tony like you did a year ago? Impossible, the current Tony is not the former Tony. After being defeated by Ultron, he has become frantic. Steve shook his head. He pointed to Tony who was still in fear and said to Barton, no, that's not the case. He is the real Tony. I just came back from the underground city in Australia. That Tony is commanding the armor in mainland Australia to attack the local underground city. It is impossible to come to Flushing in time, and it is so easy to be caught by you. What? Barton looked at Tony in disbelief. Impossible, he is obviously. Barton, I don't need to lie to you. That guy is another Iron Man from the multiverse. Tony glanced at Steve gratefully, and then continued to explain. Barton, I just came back from Nemarsum, look at my beer belly, how can I be as handsome as that guy in a suit now? In order to explain, he also struggled. Barton is skeptical, is there really a multiverse? Steve stepped forward to pull Tony up, and said to Barton, you can rest assured that the multiverse has been confirmed by Wanda. You know how strong her spiritual illusion is. Speaking of Wanda's spiritual fantasy, Barton said quickly, Steve, please help Wanda, I want to see if this guy is really Tony. The corner of Tony's mouth twitched and said, no need, I wouldn't have created Ultron if I wasn't influenced by Wanda's spiritual illusion. For psychic visions, he already has shadows. Barton looked at Tony vigilantly. I have to try it, otherwise I won't believe it. Tony was helpless. Well, for the sake of my friend, I am willing to do it again. Where's Wanda? He asked. Steve looked at the battlefield and pointed to the bloody red energy flooding the street corner in the distance. Over there. Hey, is that Yummy? Hey, Wanda, what a coincidence, you're here too. At the corner of the street, Yang Ming flew down with the help of a spider's thread, cut off the head of Mark's armor with a knife in his hand, and turned his head to grin at the heroic Wanda. When they met for the second time, Wanda's expression was not good, and she recalled the embarrassing scene again. I will settle the account with you last time. Her tone was full of unkindness, and then she turned around and manipulated the crimson energy to sweep across the battlefield, turning all the Mark armor into scrap iron wherever she passed. Seeing this, Yang Ming curled his lips slightly, it's impolite. Boom. When the energy pulse hit, Yang Ming tilted his head to avoid the sneak attack, turned around and fired spider silk to pull the Mark armor in front of him and smash it with a punch. Scanning the messy battlefield in the underground city, Yang Ming called out the system interface. Temporary task. Participate in the global hegemony of all parties, obtain their own territory, no size limit, and upgrade the reward card booster to 20%. This is a temporary mission that has just started, so he will leave Tony to think about solving the Mark armor here as soon as possible, and make the Flushing underground city his first base. There are a large number of Ultron soldiers in the Mark armor legion. If he wants to participate, it will inevitably cause a lot of trouble. But compared with the system rewards, that trouble is nothing. And he doesn't have to fight for territory everywhere, as long as he develops wretchedly in the underground city of Flushing. Because of the keen hearing brought by the spider suit, he also heard the conversation between Barton and Steve. Although Ultron and another Tony are in a cooperative relationship, there is no room for two tigers, and sooner or later there will be a battle between the two. From the moment the Iron Man universe connects, the tables have changed. After making up his mind, Yang Ming's action of destroying the armor was even more crisp. Friday, turn on the one-hit kill mode. Okay, sir. In an instant, the eyes on the spider mask glowed bloody red, and the metal spider spear on the back burst into cold light under Yang Ming's urging, and as Yang Ming sprinted, he destroyed the mark armor encountered along the way. Although the nano suit combined with the Vulture flight suit can achieve extremely fast flight speed, the two suits were never designed by one person. If the fit is too low, it will limit the mobility and functionality of the nano suit itself. So after thinking about it, Yang Ming finally decided to abandon the Vulture flight suit and restore the nano suit to its original appearance. Originally I thought about integrating the Vulture flight suit into the blank card, but felt that it would be a pity to integrate the Vulture flight suit. Whether this thing is strong or weak, it is a pity to eat it and throw it away. It can only be used as a table foot. Call out. Suddenly, a shadow flashed past his eyes with the breeze, and the pale silver energy threads floating in the air gradually faded. Yang Ming's eyelids twitched, his face showing surprise. What? He didn't see what it was. After using the power gem fragments many times, his current strength attribute has reached about 6 tons. The increase in strength will lead to the enhancement of physical fitness and sensory ability. Coupled with the increase in the spider nano suit, he can advance even at the speed of thunder and lightning. Anticipate avoidance. But even so, he still couldn't find out what it was. With curiosity, Yang Ming launched a spider web and followed in the direction where the shadow swept away. Soon, at the narrow intersection where containers were piled up, smoke and dust tornadoes were seen around several mark armors, and then the armors around them exploded with countless sparks and turned into a pile of scrap iron. Call. As the tornado dissipated, a blond man in casual clothes with a stubble emerged from it. Not far from the steel staircase, Yang Ming hung upside down in the air along the spider's thread. Seeing this scene in his eyes, it was easy to guess the identity of the other party. Pietro Maximoff, Wanda's twin brother, called Quicksilver in another version, has extremely terrifying speed. In the Avengers movie, this guy is a bad boy who has super fast speed, and finally died in the plot because he couldn't dodge the bullet. Although it is weak enough, the speed of movement is not covered. When he first appeared on the stage, he and Wanda turned the Avengers Alliance upside down. Many superheroes have suffered under his hands. The thing this guy regrets the most is probably taking Thor's sledgehammer out of curiosity. And Pietro in this world should not be bad, at least in terms of speed. Yang Ming is far behind. Hey buddy, you've got good speed, would you be interested in joining? Just as Yang Ming stretched out his hand to say hello, he wanted to invite him to join his team, but he only felt the wind whistling in his ears, and Pietro was already standing in front of him like lightning. You're the one who bullies my sister, Yummy, Spider-Man bug. Pietro crossed his arms and looked at the guy in the metal suit in front of him, his eyes full of malicious scrutiny. Yang Ming turned over and landed, and wiped his head with both hands. Haha, that's right, I am the city hero who beats Hulk, kicks Thor, and is popular among thousands of girls, a passing and most caring spider. Wait, you talk too much, I just want to know if you are Yami. Pietro's forehead was full of black lines. I need to correct this. Well, you talk so much nonsense, it must be that fool. Hey, although I know your sister very well, we still have to have the respect we deserve. Before Yang Ming finished speaking, Pietro had disappeared, and his body flew upside down uncontrollably and sank deep into the wall behind him. Only then did he feel the dull pain in his chest. Little bug, this is the price you pay for bullying Wanda. Jokingly looking at Yang Ming embedded in the wall, Pietro was indescribably proud. Being beaten into the wall, Yang Ming patted the dust on his head indifferently, and shrugged helplessly. It seems that I don't plan to talk properly. Of course, I haven't taught you enough yet. Pietro ignored the threat in Yang Ming's words, hooked Yang Ming's hands provocatively, and then rolled up a touch of light silver energy and disappeared. It's such a headache that I'm supposed to be making this gesture to someone else. Yang Ming shook his head, and his body shook free from the groove in the wall. Kakaka. Gravel slipped from the pit from time to time. Yang Ming looked at the empty alleys around him, and called out the artificial intelligence. Friday. Start scanning. As soon as he opened his mouth, the spider sensed a sudden warning. Following the reaction given by his body, Yang Ming tilted his head to avoid the slightly flickering silver energy behind him, and lost Pietro's figure the next moment. Haha, interesting. Yang Ming smiled. Red and blue cards appeared on his fingertips, and a black camera also appeared around his waist, and the lanyard turned into a belt to fix the camera on his waist. Card amplifier, which increases all attributes of system cards by 10%. Call out. Suddenly, a breeze picked up, and the light silver energy thread appeared again for a moment. Yang Ming was alerted in his heart. He stepped back and sideways to dodge ahead of time, and then stopped moving. Pietro, who turned to another street, stopped, his face full of bewilderment. What just happened? 2 consecutive attacks failed, which made him unconfident about his speed. Obviously the opponent's speed is not that fast, but he can just dodge his attack. Coincidence, it must be a coincidence, come again. Call out. The flying sand flickered away, and everything in front of Pietro, who was running fast, turned into slow motion. Turning the intersection, he happened to see the camera where Yang Ming, slowly, placed the red and blue cards into his waist. The camera lens also, slowly, glows red and blue, and the spider logo shimmers. As Yang Ming slowly pushed the devices on both sides of the camera, the color of the camera changed to red and blue, and the camera was covered with cobweb-like patterns, and countless spider threads appeared out of nowhere in the void around him and converged towards Yang Ming from all directions. Pietro watched Yang Ming's abnormality, and curiously touched the spider threads that appeared out of thin air when he passed by him. Boom! In an instant, Pietro felt that his body was flying upside down uncontrollably. His vision was blurred for a while, and the next moment he forcibly exited the extreme speed state and slammed into the wall hole left by Yang Ming. Pietro. Yang Ming. As soon as the second-generation spider suit covered his whole body, he subconsciously turned his head when he heard the movement, and at a glance he saw Pietro sitting down in the wall hole. He left, staring at him with wide-eyed eyes. What are you doing? Yang Ming asked. Pietro came back to his senses. The embarrassment on his face turned into embarrassment. He gritted his teeth and disappeared in front of Yang Ming at a high speed. In just 2 seconds, the sand and rocks on the ground exploded again, and the sharpened spider sense after being amplified alerted Yang Ming in his heart. This time, Yang Ming seemed to see something. Boom! The ground under Yang Ming's feet trembled slightly, and the impact brought by the extreme speed was removed by him. Raising his hand, the faint silver energy dissipated with the wind, and a fist was struggling in Yang Ming's hand. Pietro looked at Yang Ming in disbelief, and the terrifying force that restrained his fist made him terrified. How is it possible? How did you do it? Pietro asked with a look of shock. Yang Ming's tone was indifferent. It's very simple, because your movements are too slow. What? Pietro seemed to have misheard, and some people thought that his speed was not fast enough. It's my turn now. Yang Ming grinned, locked the opponent's fist just like that, swung the opponent's body and hit the ground. Bang bang bang. What? Etc. Pain pain pain. Don't. Help. Do not. Under the continuous violent falls and inhuman torture, Pietro let out a miserable scream. After a while, Pietro was lying at Yang Ming's feet panting like a dead dog, staring blankly at the ceiling of the underground city, with a tear slowly flowing from the corner of his eye. I swear, I will get rid of the bad habit of being cheap in the future. After sanctioning Pietro, Yang Ming clapped his hands and nodded slightly. He is now sure that the Pietro in this world is faster and has good physical strength, so he shouldn't die from bullets. Haha, there is no captain who cares more about the safety of future members than I do. Yang Ming showed a gratified smile, turned around and was about to leave. Boom! At this moment, majestic crimson energy surged rapidly from the alley. Wanda heard the news and jumped out of the crimson energy. Pietro. She looked at her brother who looked like a dead fish, then turned to look at Yang Ming, with anger in her eyes. You managed to piss me off. She gritted her teeth, her chest heaved and fluctuated, and the crimson energy around her became more and more turbulent. Because there are two, I have to say it twice. Yang Ming spread his hands, so. Although Wanda hasn't joined the team yet, Yang Ming is still very excited to start the civil war ahead of schedule. This is much more exciting than fighting the villain. So, I will teach you a lesson severely. Wanda raised her hands, and the crimson energy circled and turned into a rich crimson tornado, about to drown Yang Ming. Zzzz. Suddenly, the US team's shield rubbed against the wall and sparks flew out and hit the ground, separating the two sides. Steve then jumped to the ground, stretched out his hand nervously to signal Wanda to stop. Stop, Wanda, calm down, this is just a misunderstanding. Steve knew how scary and angry Wanda could be. He punched Pietro. It wasn't a misunderstanding. As Wanda said that, the crimson energy in her hand was restrained a lot. It was Steve who invited her to join the Avengers, and only Steve could persuade her to stop. I need an explanation, she said. Steve turned to look at Yang Ming. Yami, this must be a misunderstanding, right? Yang Ming took off his mask and said with disappointment, Steve, please come back a little later next time, at least wait until the fight is over. Steve's cheek twitched. Finished. When it's over, you're done too. Yami, please, explain, now is not the time, he said in a slow tone. Yang Ming nodded and sighed. I just said hello to Pietro, and he rushed over to beat me, and called me a bug. Don't you say I'm angry, but I'm a city hero who is popular among thousands of girls. The caring little spider who doesn't pass by, the last hope of the entire multiverse. Seeing Yang Ming's eloquence rambling non-stop, Wanda's forehead was bulging with veins, and she quickly raised her hand. Stop, I believe in you, don't say any more. You really believe me? With a look of disbelief, Yang Ming raised his foot and walked towards the other party. Wanda backed away with a dark face. I believe in you, don't come here. Sorry Pietro, I did my best. Seeing that the other party seemed to really believe in him, Yang Ming paused and looked at Steve. I believe in you too. Steve backed away blankly, a drop of sweat dripping from his cheek. No, I want to ask, how is the situation here? Steve let out a sigh of relief. With the help of your 4 Spider-Man friends, and Barton's guards are very skilled, the situation here has basically stabilized. That's good. As Yang Ming said, he raised his foot and wanted to step forward again. What are you going to do? The two exclaimed. Go back, what else can you do? Yang Ming cursed inwardly for being crazy, strode past the two of them and left. The underground city of Flushing, the base of the Hawkeye Guards. Patton sent his men out to clean up the battlefield, and then invited everyone to his residence. Tony scanned the empty room and subconsciously asked, Barton, Barbara is. They were not there, I sent them to a safe place. Button's eyes warned, you guys don't want to hurt my family. Tony, well, you still don't believe me. He turned to Wanda and said, please, use your ability to convince Barton that I am the real Tony. Wanda looked at Steve. Seeing Steve nodding, she came behind Tony, her hands filled with crimson energy to explore Tony's spiritual world, and transferred the illusion picture into the crimson energy group, so that everyone present could see. Seeing this, Peter smiled excitedly. Wow, Yami, is this the social death scene you mentioned? Yang Ming nodded. That's right, if it's an indescribable scene, how embarrassing it would be to be seen. Behind him, Pietro stared at Yang Ming's back, thinking about his future revenge plan, not knowing what he thought of, and laughed happily. But he reacted quickly and quickly regained his composure. On the side, Morgan looked at Wanda behind Tony, with a trace of fear in his eyes, and subconsciously hid behind Yang Ming. What's wrong? Yang Ming noticed Morgan's abnormality. Morgan turned pale, shook his head and said, it's nothing. Scarlet Witch Wanda, the Chaos Mage who almost destroyed the world, Wanda who ran away left a deep impression on her, and Uncle Stephen, who was the Supreme Mage, almost died at the hands of this woman. It is not known whether Wanda in this world possesses such power. If there is, it is really dangerous. Steve also discovered this Tony's daughter who claimed to be from the multiverse, and he was keenly aware of the other party's fear of Wanda. Reminiscent of the horror after Wanda went berserk, he seemed to know something. Will Wanda in another world really go that far? Steve was preoccupied. Amid the exclamation of everyone, he looked up at Tony's spiritual illusion. In the illusion of the mind, 5 Spider-Man, 4 Iron Man, 3 Hulk, 2 long-haired men holding sledgehammers, and a big stupid man covered in purple besieged Ultron, and finally wiped Ultron. Seeing this scene, Yang Ming's mouth twitched. This is what he fooled Morgan. Tony really believed it. And Wanda saw this familiar scene again, and couldn't help but glance at Yang Ming. Tony's psychic visions are too much like this guy's. Her powers can not only evoke the deepest fears in the human heart, but also inspire the yearning for the best wishes in the human heart. She used the latter on Tony, and the former on Yang Ming last time, but why are their spiritual illusions so similar? If she remembers correctly, in Yang Ming's spiritual illusion, there are not so many Spider-Man, Iron Man, Green Hulk, and stalwart men with sledgehammers, and the purple potato essence is not so brave and invincible. Chapter 91. More importantly, what Tony thinks is to defeat Ultron and save the world. The hammer hugger and purple sweet potato Jing who defeated Ultron with him in the spiritual illusion should also be superheroes. But in Yang Ming's spiritual illusion, no matter whether it is the evil side or the righteous side, all capable users and aliens will be beaten by this guy. She couldn't help thinking of Pietro who had just been beaten, and began to think about her own safety. However, she recalled the last scene in Yang Ming's spiritual illusion, and she was a little uncertain. Does this guy's sense of fear come from those endless huge figures, or because he feels helpless that his journey is coming to an end? What a complicated man. On the side, although Barton was curious about who the Hammer Man and the purple potato essence appeared in Tony's mental illusion, in the following picture, the scene of Tony dreaming of reuniting with his family after defeating Ultron made him 100% sure that this was the real one. Tony. There is no Mark Armor Legion in Tony's mindscape, just another Iron Man from the, well, multiverse. Tony is just an ordinary person on Earth. Without any superpowers, it is impossible to fool Wanda's telepathic ability. So, the multiverse is real. Thinking of this, Barton looked at Tony, who was immersed in the illusion of his mind, and his heart was full of guilt. Because of his stupidity and suspicion, he almost killed his friend with his own hands. Wanda, let Tony wake up, Barton said with a complicated expression. Wanda nodded and removed the crimson energy in his hand. Tony woke up like a dream, and came back to his senses. Tony, I misunderstood you, I hope you can forgive me. Barton bowed deeply to Tony and apologized solemnly. Tony breathed a sigh of relief. Instead of blaming the other party, he chatted with the other party about homework. On the other hand, seeing that the misunderstanding had been resolved and the situation in the underground city of Flushing had stabilized, Steve offered to leave. We're leaving. So fast. Yang Ming was full of reluctance. I haven't had time to poach the wall yet. Steve nodded and said, another Tony in the multiverse is aggressively attacking other underground cities. I can't stop at this time. But Ultron soldiers will not help you fight against the evil Tony. With the strength of the few of you, you are no match at all. Yang Ming said truthfully. He could see that Steve didn't bring S.H.I.E.L.D. agents over this time, obviously acting behind Ultron's back, and didn't get any support at all. Facing the Mark Armor Legion, even he has to be careful. Although he can use the power gem fragments to push all the way, but the power gem is not a panacea. It's okay to hit 2,000 with power gems, but his body will collapse if he hits 20,000. Furthermore, after using gem fragments one after another in the past few days, he can feel that his body has become much stronger, but the burden on his body is also increasing. He's always been an ordinary guy, and not an ordinary guy in the Marvel Universe. In the Marvel world, ordinary people have a very small chance of being lucky enough to gain superpowers if they are struck by lightning. But in his world, being struck by lightning can only be a wicked adjective. If you want to gain superpowers through lightning, it's better to be bitten by a poisonous spider. That's right, sending them to the hospital in time can also prove their money-making ability. The difference between the two worlds made Yang Ming feel deeply powerless about his body. With his physique, it is impossible for him to possess godlike power overnight like the superheroes in the Marvel world. The power of the gem fragments overloaded his body, and even the powerful physique he brought when he changed his suit couldn't fully digest the power of the gems. After all, the battle suit is only a support, and it is his body that really receives the power of the gem. If you continue to use the power gem fragments at a fast pace, Yang Ming's body may collapse, and even more terrible things may happen. He needs time. Therefore, he didn't have much hope for Steve and the others. At this stage, only the Ultron army can match the evil Tony's armored army. Steve also knew that their chances were slim, but he still wanted to give it a try. Yami, I know our strength is weak, so I need your help. He looked at Yang Ming with sincerity, but Yang Ming suddenly came back to his senses, and secretly said, good guy. I want to poach him, and he wants to poach me. This is obviously the Iron Man universe, not the Captain America universe, okay. The corner of Yang Ming's mouth twitched. Steve, I hope you can wait, at least plan this operation first. Steve shook his head. It's too late. Okay then, I wish you a smooth operation. Opinions were not unified, and Yang Ming did not continue to talk nonsense with the other party. After all, everyone's ideas are different, and there is no need to impose your own ideas on the other party. When Steve comes back disgraced, the guy will listen. As for the success of the action, still the same sentence, this is the Iron Man universe, not the US Team universe, and the protagonist's halo is on Tony. Steve doesn't have such a strong aura, at most he can come back alive, it's impossible to succeed. The disparity in strength is too great. Steve didn't complain about Yang Ming's refusal, and he quickly turned around to win over Tony. Tony received the invitation to save the world from Steve, and immediately looked at Yang Ming. His thoughts are exactly the same as Yang Ming's, and his blood and brute force alone cannot deal with another self. He is very confident in his IQ, and he may have already prepared himself for Steve's troubles. If it were him, he would also plan ahead. Seeing that Tony remained silent, Steve's eyes flashed disappointment, knowing that it was impossible for him to persuade him. For a long time, the two of them have serious differences in views on various things, and they only reluctantly cooperate because of the strength of the enemy. This thing is no exception. Looking at Barton again, Steve didn't continue to probe. He knew that Barton's dream was to live an ordinary life with his wife and children. If he hadn't been cornered, Barton wouldn't have made a move. Wanda, Pietro, let's go. Steve took a deep breath and bid farewell to everyone. And many more. At this time, Yang Ming suddenly spoke, took out the vulture flight suit and handed it to Pietro. This is Tomb's flight suit. It can not only resist bullets, enhance certain strength attributes, but also escape at critical moments. Pietro looked wary. You want to give it to me? He didn't believe that the other party had such kindness. Yang Ming smiled. I just borrowed it from you, and you have to return it to me when you come back. Why? Pietro asked. Yang Ming rolled his eyes. Of course I was afraid that you would die. By the way, are you asking why you want to return it to me, or why you want to give you your flight suit? He felt the need to be sure. Pietro, I don't need your flight suit, my speed is supersonic. Take it, you really might die. Yang Ming interrupted the other party, looked at Wanda and said, don't forget, I am from the multiverse, do you want to see how another Pietro left you? As soon as this remark came out, Wanda's heart trembled, and Pietro's expression turned ugly. Don't lie to my sister, she is very simple. Take it, Pietro, we can only trust him. Wanda's eyes on Yang Ming couldn't help but change. Yami, thank you, I can't lose Pietro. Yang Ming smiled slightly. I know, relatives are the most important thing to you. Yami. Wanda was stunned. She didn't expect that the man who understood her best was a man who had only met two sides. This was something she had never thought of. The next moment, a smile appeared on her cold face, and she stepped forward with open arms. What are you going to do? Suddenly, Gwen, who had been silent all this time, stopped in front of Yang Ming and said, if you want to hug Yami, let me replace him. Why? Wanda was taken aback. Because Yami is a Chinese, it would be very inappropriate for them to behave like this between unfamiliar people of the opposite gender. Gwen explained it again, and looked back with pride. Yami, am I right? Yang Ming's forehead was full of black lines. It's not inappropriate, we are all friends, get out of the way. This fool always wants to spoil my good deeds, what's wrong with hugging me? Let me experience what's wrong. Let me enjoy what's up. Don't talk about hugging. Harder work will do. Yami, don't hold back, Wanda will understand. Gwen was very understanding. Yes, I understand very well, I'm sorry just now. Wanda took a step back with a look of embarrassment. On the side, Pietro smiled and stepped forward to take the vulture flight suit. Haha, then let me replace Wanda. As he spoke, he gave a big hug. Yami, thank you for your flight suit, we are friends now. Oh, yes, my friend. Yang Ming smiled stiffly, and gave Gwen a hard look. Ah, In fact, Wanda can also. Goodbye, my friend. Wanda waved goodbye and followed Steve away. Wait, come back. Yang Ming stretched his hand halfway, and seeing Wanda and the others disappear, he could only sigh helplessly. Hey, did the curse of the ex-girlfriend come true? Whoever breaks up will be a bachelor for the rest of his life, and he obviously added the sentence, "It's strange," in his heart at that time. Yummy, what are we going to do next? The three of Steve left, and Tony stepped forward and asked. Yang Ming casually pushed Gwen away in front of him and touched his chin. Well, let's observe the situation temporarily. After the evil Tony takes down the underground city, he will definitely not be willing to be suppressed by Ultron. They will definitely have a big battle. Tony nodded in agreement. Yes, that's our chance. He turned to Button and said, "Can we stay here?" Of course, it will be safer to have you here. Barton wished for it. After getting the consent, Yang Ming turned around and said, "Peter, go and tell Jessica to bring her back with Pepper. Tony, let's get your equipment over here. Morgan, you should be very familiar with nanotechnology. I need you to help me improve my suit and design a new set of nanosuit for Tony to increase combat effectiveness. Peter number 2, number 3, you go back first, I will let you come over if there is something to do." Having said that, Yang Ming thought about it, and let them go back first. From time to time, villains from the Spider-Man universe come across. The white-haired Otto only knows to stay in the laboratory and doesn't care about other things. Without Spider-Man, the Spider-Verse must be very wrong. Peter number 22 nodded and counted with his fingers. Yummy, I've been here for a long time this time, and you should pay me $3,000. Peter number 3's eyes lit up, and he said, I'm very cheap, I only need $2,800. And me, I'm a top student at Imperial University, I'm more expensive than them all, I want $5,000. Gwen raised her hand and said. Seeing that the salary was about to be settled, Peter cheered up. I want 2 people, my buddy can't work for nothing. His food expenses are very expensive. Yang Ming, this group of clubs, can't they collect debts when no one is around? You are like this, how can I be a big brother? Where should I save my face? On the side, Tony had strange eyes. Yummy, that's what you said, you have the absolute right to speak. It only adds up to such a small amount of money, isn't Spider-Man too cheap? Morgan has a calm face, earning thousands of dollars in half a day, which is already a high-paying job for all Peters. With a dark face, Yang Ming gritted his teeth and said, very well, I wanted to put on the latest vibration gold nanosuits for you, it seems that I was overthinking. What, Zhenjin? Peter exclaimed suddenly, his eyes widened, as if he couldn't believe it. What is Zhenjin? Peter asked, and the other 2 also showed curiosity. Peter 20 explained. Years ago, I heard from Peter that in his universe, there is a country called Wakanda that is rich in vibrating gold, and the market price of a gram of vibrating gold is around millions of US dollars, and there is a price but no market, and ordinary people can't find channels at all. If you want to buy Zhenjin, you have to pay at least 10 times the price to buy it from the black market. Quote, 10 times, that's $100,000. 1 gram. A few people were shocked. $100,000 per gram, no matter how much you cut corners for a set of battle suits, at least it weighs a few kilograms, right? Developed. Yummy, I was wrong, I don't want salary, please give me a vibrating gold suit, I will use it at the wedding. I don't want a salary anymore, I want a vibrating gold suit, only vibrating gold is worthy of my title of Spider-Woman. I'm getting old, it's too late to shock the suit. I want to revitalize the gold suit and become the richest wage earner. Several people looked excited, and Yang Ming regained his dignity as the captain again. Haha, Tony, have you seen that? This is the absolute right to speak. Tony, Yummy, if it were me, I would rather pay them a little bit of dollars. He secretly cursed Yang Ming as an idiot. Yang Ming waved his hand and said indifferently, small meaning, this bit of vibration gold is sprinkled. Let's talk big, I have to work hard to fight monsters and collect vibration gold during this period of time. On the side, Morgan of course heard the conversation of several people, and she showed disdain for Zhenjin. It's just a few caddies of vibrating gold, no one can afford it. Uncle T'Challa's birthday presents have never been so shabby. Of course Yang Ming didn't know that he was despised by a rich woman, even if he knew, he didn't care. After all, Morgan is the second-generation Iron Man, and he can't compare to upgrading his armor just once. Okay, you guys go back first, he said to several people. Peter number 2 and Peter number 3 nodded, and disappeared into the gray dimension wall with a thought. Why don't you leave? Yang Ming looked at Gwen. Gwen said, I have no class these days, so I can play for a few more days. Okay, play by yourself, don't run around. Understood, I'm not a child. Gwen flew away with a spider web, and Yang Ming and others also started to get down to business. Peter took Jessica and the others over, and Barton arranged a place for them before turning to clean the battlefield. The underground city was attacked, which can be said to be a heavy loss, and he still has a lot of things to deal with. On the other hand, Yang Ming and Tony went to the port to move the equipment to the underground city. These things are still needed for the improvement of the battle suit. At Tony's request, Morgan began to help Tony understand the nano-armor technology, and the design of the nano-armor officially started. Time passed, and in the blink of an eye, several people lived in the underground city for a week. In the middle, a wave of Mark armor attacked again, making the atmosphere of the underground city even more tense. But in this underground city offensive and defensive battle, Yang Ming showed his strength intentionally or unintentionally, and successfully won the support of the underground city people. It will take some time to turn this place into your own base camp. Fortunately, the situation here is not as chaotic as in the underground city under Tomb's jurisdiction, and Yang Ming's operation is very smooth. Barton seemed to have guessed Yang Ming's thoughts, and did not prevent Yang Ming from gaining his reputation and favor, and also took the initiative to open the authority of the Eagle Eye Guard to Yang Ming. Tony trusts Yang Ming, and he will trust Yang Ming too. If it weren't for Ao Chuang, he would have taken his wife and children to hide in the safe house and lived his own life. He didn't have the mind to train the guards at all. Now that someone is willing to shoulder the burden of protecting the underground city, he is also relieved. He sometimes feels powerless compared to other superheroes. His ability is still too weak, otherwise he would not have watched Natasha die under the gunfire of Ultron soldiers. He has tried to gain strength, but the enemy's strength will always exceed his imagination. Perhaps only the truly strong can save the world and those who want to protect it. And he could only hide, hating his incompetence and cowardice at night. Barton looked at Yang Ming, who was mingling with the guards in the training ground, his eyes gradually softened. Will he succeed? Of course. Tony came to him, full of confidence in Yang Ming. Hope from the multiverse, I believe he will change the world. At this time, Happy hurriedly came to Tony's side, panting heavily. Tony, something happened. In the training ground, Yang Ming taught the newly joined young female members how to archery. Annie, your perfume today is very special. Yummy, this is Washa's Liushan water. Oh, no wonder it's so familiar. Yummy, can you shoot arrows? Of course it will, and it's accurate. But you didn't see the target. Target? What target? Didn't I see? Annie snatched the bow and arrow from Yang Ming's hand, cursed with disdain in her eyes, then turned and left. Yang Ming scratched his forehead, his face confused. Why did she scold me? I clearly saw it. Well, I must have read it wrong. Hey, Yami, have you been rejected again? Gwen came over gloating, and then handed the Palm computer to Yang Ming. As you guessed, Steve's operation failed. The evil Tony had already predicted that Steve would come to him, and gave them a hard lesson. They almost couldn't escape. Yang Ming nodded. How is Pietro? Pietro escaped from the encirclement of the Armor Legion with the Vulture flight suit, and should join Steve and the others now. Speaking of this, Gwen asked with strange eyes, why do you care so much about a man? Yang Ming rolled his eyes and explained, he is not an ordinary man. He is our future team member. A teammate with super speed will help us a lot. Are you sure he'll join us? Of course. The corner of Yang Ming's mouth raised slightly. They failed in their operation, and it is impossible for S.H.I.E.L.D. to go back. They can only come to us for help. You've already figured it out, you fool. Yang Ming. Watch your words, I'm the captain. Okay, Captain, when will I get my Zhenjin battle suit? Silly boy, what's the rush? I didn't get mine, how could I have yours? I knew you were talking big. Yang Ming pursed his lips, too lazy to argue with the other party. Boom. The roar of the engine suddenly sounded, and Tony rode his motorcycle to the training ground with a solemn expression on his face. Yummy, something happened. Yang Ming turned around and asked, what happened? We found Banner. In the war a year ago, Tony was rescued by Steve, and Banner, who fought side by side with Tony, was blasted into the sea by the artillery fire of Ultron soldiers and disappeared. Although Tony has been living a decadent life this year, he has been looking for Banner's whereabouts. He knew Hulk wouldn't let Banner die just like that. Hearing that Banner was found, Yang Ming smiled and said, this is a good thing. Find Banner and recruit the Hulk. This is the best meat tank, and the output is also very explosive. The premise is that the opponent will not cause a civil war like Yang Ming after transforming. Tony shook his head, looking worried, but Banner was found by the evil Tony. Yang Ming's smile remained the same, without a trace of surprise. This is normal, the evil Tony's movement is too loud, and it will be affected wherever Banner hides. Once a fight occurs, the irritable Hulk in Banner's body will definitely wake up. Coupled with the fact that Hulk is a very uncertain factor, the evil Tony wants to find Hulk more than us. Quote. As he said that, Yang Ming stretched his waist. Let's go too, Banner is a very important help, we can't let the evil Tony get Banner away. Okay, I'll notify Morgan and Jessica right away. No, just me and you. Morgan still needs to weave the vibrating gold battle suit. Jessica and the others need to guard here to prevent the armored army from attacking again. Yummy, you are very thoughtful. Always been this way. Banner will be all right. You put away the drawings of the Hulk armor in the studio first, and then say this to me. Tony, this guy actually peeked at my drawings. Central Business District of Johannesburg, South Africa. Because the entrance to the underground city of Johannesburg is here, the armored army unscrupulously attacked the underground city, causing the Central Business District to be affected by the flames of war and smoke everywhere. The streets are in a mess, and the monitoring equipment has long since failed. Ultron mechanics did not dispatch soldiers to manage it. In order to fight against evil, Ultron chose to sacrifice a small number of people and temporarily designated this area as a battlefield, just to achieve real peace. Scorched ruins and broken walls can be seen everywhere. The victims hid in the dilapidated buildings. They witnessed the Mark armor passing by from time to time, and the hatred and anger in their eyes gradually turned into helplessness and desolation. The former Iron Man has become a demon. Is he taking revenge on us? To retaliate that we did not support him, but supported Ultron to rule the world. Not far away, in the residential buildings where the flames of war were ignited, two armors were released from the invisible state and landed with a roar from the sky. Ha ha ha, the nanometal in the hand of the golden red armor surged, and the high-molecule nanomaterial was quickly lost to extinguish the flame. As the nano armor shrank and poured into the reactor in Tony's chest, Yang Ming, who restored the armor to the suitcase state on the other side, looked envious. Tony, when will my nano armor be ready? He asked. Tony thought for a while. It should still be a while, the nano armor is too complicated, you need to be patient. But why can you use the nano armor in advance? Yang Ming looked envious and jealous, and almost couldn't help but rob this guy. Speaking of the nano armor on his body, Tony shook his head and sighed. This is a relic left to Morgan by Morgan's father, that is, another Tony, and she always carries it with her. Before the operation, Morgan was worried that the old armor would not guarantee my safety, so he lent me this armor. Quote. Until now, he couldn't figure out why another self would abandon his wife and daughter to spank his fingers and sacrifice himself to save half of the life in the universe. The same Iron Man, if I encountered the situation at that time, would I not hesitate to do this? Tony didn't know, didn't dare to think about it, he was scared. He knew the feeling of losing his father since he was a child. Inadvertently, he caught a glimpse of Iron Man graffitied with colored chalk on the wall in the dilapidated house, which contained a child's admiration and dream. Tony was stunned for a moment. Maybe this is the reason why he persevered to the end. Looking at the armored machines flashing by from time to time, Tony shook his head bitterly. It's ironic, people hate me now. Of course I hate you. Yang Ming Nuzui signaled the other party to look at the victims in the distance. Do they look very similar to you back then? Yeah, very similar. Tony's eyes became firm. So, I want to let them know my existence, the existence of another Iron Man. He now somewhat understood why Steve knew it was impossible, but still took the risky action. Because we want people to see that there is hope in this world. Yang Ming was very pleased with Tony's awareness. He stretched out his hand, and the red and blue cards appeared between his fingers. Leave it to me, Tony, and do what you think is right. Thank you, Yami, for disrupting your plans. It's okay, you must let them know that the former Iron Man is back. I will. The two looked at each other and smiled. Nanometals emerged from the reactor to build armor, the black camera glowed, and spider silk flew out from the void, quickly weaving the armor to cover the body. Boom! The gravel splashed under his feet, and the flames burst into the sky under Tony's feet, and the laser energy pulse in his palm blasted the passing Mark armor to the ground. The loud noise in the sky attracted the attention of the victims. They carefully poked their heads out and found that there was a battle between the Iron Men. Their eyes were full of disbelief. Tony Stark is back. No one can conquer the world with armor. I can't, and neither can you. I am Iron Man, the real Iron Man. Tony's shout sounded in the sky, and the hearts of the victims trembled. They looked up at the sky with shocking eyes. Boom! The high blank light is lacing, and the flames continue to burst. Different from the ordinary armor, the nano-laser weapon is separated from the back of the steel body, and the white light can easily clear a large number of targets. The armor with a more technological sense reminded them of the former Iron Man for the first time. It turns out that this is the real Iron Man. He is back. Tony Stark, the former Iron Man, is back. He's not a demon, he didn't give up on us. We misunderstood him. Come on, Iron Man, beat them. The victims of the disaster rushed to the streets, shouting the name of Iron Man enthusiastically, and the breath of hope swept everyone. In the corner behind everyone, Yang Ming leaned against the corner, folded his arms and smiled. Haha, this guy is still so hot-blooded despite his age. I'm different, I'll just stay where I am and shout, where did the idiot come from? Yang Ming looked at a bald man in the crowd who shouted, I love Captain America. His cheeks twitched. Ruined the vibe and deserved to be bald. Boom. At this time, energy roared from behind. Yang Ming raised his eyebrows, and turned to look at the arrival of the black armor. Crack. The metal mask popped open, revealing a dark, unsmiling face. I'm Colonel James Rhodes. I'm not here to trouble you. Tony wants to meet you. Yang Ming's expression changed. Tony wants to meet me. You are not a war machine of this world. Quote, since there is evil Tony, the blackened war machine is also normal. You already guessed it, do you still want to ask? James remained expressionless. For the Spider-Man in the battle suit in front of him, he didn't feel any wavering in his heart. It's just a bug, he killed one. And Yang Ming also noticed the contempt in the other party's eyes, and couldn't help laughing. I've seen that look, there was a guy who killed Spider-Man once, and he looked at me like you did. And his fate, you will know soon. Quote, boom. In an instant, the air exploded, and as the concrete ground under his feet cracked into a spider web, Yang Ming's figure was ejected like a cannonball. When the bitter wind hit, James still dismissed it, and the heavy cannon on his shoulder began to shoot at the position in front of him wantonly without aiming. According to experience, as long as you use intensive attacks to limit Spider-Man's movement space, no matter how sensitive the spider is, it can't escape the firepower. Boom. The next moment, the heavy cannon was blasted down with great force, and the iconic semicircular eyes of the spider suit were close at hand, and the azure blue eyes instantly turned blood red. PFF'd. The sharp golden spider spear pierced the armor's protection, and blood flowed out from the holes in the armor. The shock in James's eyes gradually dissipated, and with a palm covering his black face, the Man of Steel slowly fell to the ground. I thought it would be 7 times stronger after being blackened, but I didn't expect it to be so weak. Yang Ming rolled his eyes and turned to look at the shadow in the corner. If you have seen enough, please come out, he said. Soon, the shadow in the corner of the wall dispersed, and a face exactly like James appeared in Yang Ming's sight. Wait, don't rush to do it, I'm not an enemy. James raised his hand and walked out slowly, his face a little nervous, for fear of being killed by the other party as an enemy. And Yang Ming looked at the face that was exactly the same as the pretentious monster just now, and couldn't help thinking. Hearing that the two Tonys look the same, he wonders if the evil Tony is deliberately disguising. But seeing this scene now, he suddenly realized that he knew too little about the multiverse. The battle in the sky continued, and Yongming didn't intend to help. Tony's nano warframe may not be able to suppress the large number of Mark warframes in terms of firepower, but in terms of flight speed, ordinary Mark warframes are far behind. Run away if you can't fight, lure the Mark armor here, and Yongming can sneak into the underground city of Johannesburg smoothly. He looked at James with a tense face in front of him, and the nano mask shrank. Don't be nervous, you're Tony's friend, and we're all on our own. James's face was black and stiff. That guy was also Tony's friend just now, didn't he just kill him just because you said it? He complained in his heart, and made sure that the other party would not do anything to him. Sir, do you know Tony well? He asked. Yongming nodded. Well, he is my teammate now, and he belongs to the Multi-Avenger Alliance. Multiple Avengers. James was taken aback. Did the Avengers change their name? Seeing this, Yongming explained. The Multi-Avenger Alliance is an alliance of superheroes from different multiverses. Is there really a multiverse? James widened his eyes. Yongming frowned. What? You also heard about the evil Tony? James nodded and said, yes, although I saw the gauntlet sent by Tony, it is also true that the Mark armor is raging all over the world. But I don't believe that Tony would do this. That man must not be Tony. The ambition and madness in his eyes are not like Tony at all. Of course, both guys are nasty narcissists. Quote, speaking of the narcissistic Tony, James showed a nostalgic smile on his face, looked up at Tony who was attracting the armor legion away from the sky, and continued. At that time, the underground city I was in was breached by the Mark Armor Legion, so I could only come to the nearest Johannesburg to seek help from Dr. Banner. In the underground city here, Dr. Banner mentioned to me that the origin of these Mark armors is very strange, as if they appeared out of thin air. It is impossible to create so many armors in the year that Tony disappeared. Originally, Dr. Banner suspected that these Mark armor legions were from aliens, but after seeing Tony's gauntlet and confirming the existence of another Tony, he placed his doubts in the multiverse. Quote, after hearing these words, Yongming couldn't help admiring Banner. Based on this information alone, he guessed the origin of the evil Tony. He deserves to be a man with multiple doctorates. Before the transformation, he was a doctor with a high IQ. After the transformation, he was the Hulk who violently beat Loki Thor. After fusion, he can snap his fingers and have a striking green skin. Except for a little trouble when taking pictures with children, everything else is perfect. What else did Dr. Banner say? He asked. James thought for a while, and said, Drive Banner guessed that the Warframe base camp is a super huge base. If you want to destroy the Warframe Legion, you can only destroy them all if you find that guy's base and use a super yield nuclear bomb. Yongming nodded slightly. It is indeed very possible. Where is Dr. Banner now? Speaking of Banner's current situation, James's expression, well, Yongming couldn't tell because it was too dark. James sighed. Drive Banner is still in the underground city. He has been besieged by the Armored Legion for 3 days and 3 nights. Armor Legion has been draining the Hulk's power. Hulk was indeed very angry at the beginning, tearing up countless armors with his hands, but as time went by, the continuous harassment of the armors made Hulk no longer angry. A year ago, Hulk was defeated by Ultron in this way at the cost of countless mechanical soldiers. My battle armor has been destroyed, so I can only stay here and wait for Dr. Banner. Quote, Yongming narrowed his eyes slightly. The Hulk who is no longer angry can't exert his strength at all, and he won't last long. As he spoke, he threw the suitcase to the other party and said, This is a portable armor, you should know how to use it. James took the suitcase and looked at Yongming in surprise. What are you going to do? I'm going to meet Dr. Banner. You turn on your armor and go to the underground city of Flushing, New York. It will be safe there. James is an Air Force colonel who has received years of training, and he is also very familiar with the operation of the Mark armor. His combat ability in the air is far superior to Yongming's. After all, he is a war machine. Let James go to Flushing and equip the opponent with a set of armor, which can barely be regarded as a boost. After speaking, without waiting for James to respond, Yongming turned and went to the entrance of the underground city. Looking at the figure of Yongming going away, James looked at the battle armor in his hand again, but he didn't react for a long time. In addition to Tony, there is actually a second person who gave him the armor. He never thought about it in his life. At this time, the entrance of the underground city was forcefully blasted into a terrifying deep pit, from which one can guess how large the number of mark armors poured into it. It is also enough to prove that the evil Tony attaches great importance to and fears Hulk. And the level of offensive in the Flushing underground city is just a small matter, and the evil Tony doesn't look down on Hawkeye at all. It's just that he didn't expect that a group of little spiders would suddenly appear, ruining his plan. Yang Ming didn't agree to the invitation to Black and James just now, and after thinking about it, he knew it was nothing good. It's an old routine to go to meet first, and then win over. Yang Ming also concluded that the evil Tony would not meet in real life, and it was impossible to capture the thief and the king. It is an old routine to pretend to seek refuge. Although Yang Ming is very confident in his acting skills, he has no intention of playing with the other party. He also knows that high IQ villains will not trust anyone, so there is no need to do these fancy operations. Taking advantage of the fact that the battle armor with a radius of several kilometers was lured away by Tony, Yang Ming easily sneaked into the terrifying pit in front of him. The inner wall of the deep pit is covered with soft sand, and the spider silk can't stick to it at all, so it can only rely on the nano spider spear to assist in sneaking. Soon, Yang Ming came to the bottom of the deep pit with the help of the spider spear and landed safely. Among the ruins of battle armor all over the ground, black smoke and flames could be faintly seen coming from a passage half submerged by rubble. Yang Ming raised his feet and walked, pushing away the ruins of the battle armor along the way. The scene in front of him was extremely shocking. With just one glance, he saw the ruins of battle armor piled up in the underground city. Walking into the messy underground city, the ground is covered with fragments of battle armor, and there is not a single intact building in sight. In the smoky war, there are countless charred human corpses. The tragedy is beyond Yang Ming's imagination. In order to destroy Hulk, the evil Tony doesn't care about the life and death of ordinary people. After being kidnapped, the former arms dealer not only failed to reflect on himself, but intensified his efforts to create even more terrifying war machines. He wants everyone to fear him, look up to him, and pray to him. Maybe it was just a thought difference in that cave, and Tony in different universes took different paths. One represents justice, and the other is heading for destruction. When they meet in this world, they will eventually decide who is right and who is wrong. The roar of battle armor came from a distance, and under the raging artillery fire, the angry roar became weaker and weaker. Kakaka. Boom. The dense energy pulse bombarded the green giant in the huge pit, and the gravel flew from the sky above the crumbling underground city, quickly submerging the giant in the pit. Boom. The pile of rubble exploded and splashed, and the Green Hulk jumped from it. The roar in his mouth was not as loud as before, and the green skin appeared and disappeared, obviously approaching the critical point of exiting the transformation state. Boom. A punch hit the ground and exploded a battle armor. Hulk was unable to hammer his chest, and his green skin became darker and darker. Kakaka. Hundreds of mechanical armors hovered high in the sky, and as the crowd retreated to the sides, a thick mechanical armor with a height of 5 meters appeared in front of Hulk. The gold and red battle armor is huge in size, thick in armor, equipped with several reactors on the chest and limbs to supply sufficient energy for the entire armor, and its firepower and impact are far stronger than ordinary armor. Anti-Hulk armor. The anti-Hulk armor showed up at the last moment, for one-hit kills. Ha ha ha, dear Hulk, you are tired, go to sleep, you don't need to continue fighting when you fall asleep. The eyes of the anti-Hulk armor flickered, and the voice of the evil Tony came out of it, with an indescribably proud tone. Roar. Do not. Hulk yelled at the armor, but the short sufficient roar couldn't continue to bring him strength. After being angry for 3 days and 3 nights, he could hardly stand it anymore. Hulk, Banner, goodbye, my good friend. The eyes of the anti-Hulk armor flickered, and the evil Tony controlled the armor and swooped down. Do not. At this moment, Hulk's green skin faded quickly, and his body shrank to the size of an ordinary person. Banner came to his senses, and when he looked up, he saw the huge monster punching him with fists. Man, come out, we're going to die. Banner kept calling the Hulk in his body, but Hulk didn't respond at all. He ran out of rage. At the moment when the fist was about to blast Banner into a pulp, a blurry figure flashed and rushed in front of Banner, and the door of space fell from the sky. Boom! The huge iron fist collided with the door of space and roared, and at the same time as most of the power was removed, the door of space shattered, and a relatively small figure leapt from it, launching spider webs and flying onto the shoulders of the huge armor. What? The evil Tony was surprised, and before he could react, he lost his sense of the armor. Zzzz. In the battle armor control room, the evil Tony opened his eyes, and the blankness in his eyes quickly turned into coldness. Spider-Man from the multiverse, Peter, nice to see you again. Then kill you again. After speaking, he reconnected to the other mechanical armors in the underground city of Johannesburg. At the scene, Banner looked at the huge battle armor slowly falling to the ground in disbelief, with lingering fear on his face. Drive Banner, are you okay? Yang Ming pulled his arm out from the gap in the head of the Hulk armor, and shook the mechanical fragments contaminated by his arm and said to Banner. How did you do it? Banner stood up and put his hands in front of his naked body, only a pair of underwear was intact. Yang Ming glanced at the high-altitude armor. I've seen Tony's blueprint of the Hulk armor, and I know where the Hulk armor is weakest. So it is. Banner felt helpless, and then looked at the mess of the underground city. The sadness and self-blame in his eyes finally turned into pity. In the end, I still didn't protect them well. At that time, Tony questioned the original intention of the Avengers, thinking that it is better to prevent in advance than revenge, so he created Ultron to truly protect the Earth. Banner agreed with Tony's ideas and also participated in the development of Ultron. The final result was that Ultron was out of control and the world became a mess. And this disaster in the underground city once again dealt him a heavy blow. They are still not gods, their power is limited, and they cannot protect everyone. Therefore, they can only become Avengers and let the enemy see their determination and attitude towards revenge. If you want to destroy the Earth and harm human beings, you must bear their anger. It is not only revenge, but also a deterrent and warning to the enemy. This is the limit of what they can do as humans. Ha ha ha, Peter, my friend, are you all right? A battle armor descended from a high altitude, with white light in its eyes casting phantoms, and the evil Tony in a suit greeted him cordially. Yang Ming looked coldly. It seems that your information is not very accurate, so Spider-Man must be Peter. With that said, Yang Mingfei stepped forward and blasted the low-configuration reactor on the chest of the battle armor with a punch. The armor was paralyzed, and the evil Tony turned to control another armor again, and his face was full of smiles in the projection. Whether you are Peter or not, I am very happy to meet you anyway, let's talk about terms. Yang Ming shook his head. Sorry, you are no longer qualified to negotiate terms with me. After speaking, he exploded the battle armor in front of him again. Boom. The next moment, all the battle armor descended on the ground, and projections spread all over the two of them. Do you really don't want to hear what I offer? Evil Tony's expression gradually turned cold. Before Yang Ming finished speaking, Banner boldly shouted, We are the Avengers, you killed so many people, we will come back to seek your revenge. Oh, Banner, in my world, the Avenger is just a synonym for the weak. Tony sneered. Without power to protect, what's the use of revenge? Do you think their loved ones will appreciate you for avenging them? No, they won't. They will only blame you for not protecting them well, scolding you for your incompetence, and wantonly trampling on your dignity. Banner, believe me, only if you completely rule them and make them feel afraid, they will not dare to have any bad thoughts about you. Quote. Pooh. Banner spat at the projection. You don't deserve to be Iron Man at all. The evil Tony didn't take it seriously, and laughed loudly. Ha ha, I'm not Iron Man, I'm the master of this world. Boom. A white laser fell from the sky and shattered the armor. Tony, who was wearing a nano armor, fell into the dense projection, the metal mask bounced off, and his eyes were full of anger. The master of the world, you are even more unworthy. Tony. Banner was overjoyed. Why are you back? Yang Ming asked. I'm worried. Tony didn't look back. He stared at the projection in front of him, and said word by word, the Avengers will come for revenge, just wait. Seeing himself in this world, the evil Tony finally had a face-to-face. Okay, I'm waiting for your revenge, provided you don't die in their hands. After he finished speaking with a sneer, the projection dissipated, and the surrounding battle armors all raised their hands, lighting up the energy pulse cannon in their palms. Be careful, Tony exclaimed, but Yang Ming's figure suddenly disappeared, but his voice came from a corner of the ruins. Don't worry, it's already ready. Yang Ming was wearing a black and red spider battle suit, raised his fists high, and clasped countless fine, crystal-clear translucent spider silks tightly with his fingers. It actually included all the battle armors in the spider silk trap. The next moment, the red and blue cards were inserted into the camera at the waist, and a generation of Spider-Man power burst into the body from the void. Rise! Yang Ming shouted loudly, muscles all over his body swelled, struggling to pull the fine spider silk. The battle armor present was instantly pinned down by the spider silk trap, causing the energy pulse in the palm to lose its aim and shoot indiscriminately, bringing the companions around it into the range of fire. Boom, boom, boom. The cannon fire exploded all over the sky, and Tony quickly turned around and separated the nano armor and turned it into a shield to protect Banner, and then the two were engulfed by the roaring flames. After a while, the flames of war rose, and Yang Ming dealt with the surviving Mark armor, knocked on the nano turtle shell and said, "Come out." The nano shield shrank, and Banner looked at the armor on Tony in shock. "Tony, did you use nano metal technology to make the armor?" "I'll explain later." Tony scanned the surrounding armor ruins, his face full of amazement. "Yummy, what happened just now?" Yang Ming threw the special effect device in his hand and said, "A little gadget, that guy plays projection, of course I can do it too." He still brought the special effect device made by Mysterio with him, and Yang Ming thought of this trick just now when he saw the evil Tony using a projection to talk to him. Taking advantage of the time when he exploded the armor and the evil Tony changed the armor, he secretly activated the projection effect to talk to the opponent. Then quietly used Jessica's ability to set up spider silk traps, and then use the powerful power of a generation of Spider-Man to pull a large number of armors in the spider silk traps, and finally use the energy pulse of the armors to destroy these armors. I have to say that the special effects of Mystery Guest are really good. Next time I go back, I must catch this guy to supply all kinds of special effects needs. After solving these armors, Tony manipulated the nano armor to separate the nano metal, and left the underground city with the two of them. After the three left, the eyes of a battle armor head flickered dimly. In the battle armor control room, the evil Tony looked at the blurred picture on the projection screen with an extremely sarcastic smile on his face. Nano armor, Spider-Man with multiple suits of special effects. Using precious technology on such a flashy weapon, what do you use to defeat me? Zzzz. The scene stopped abruptly, and the head of the battle armor on the scene was trampled and exploded. This person was filled with orange-red high temperature. As the high temperature spread, the surrounding armor ruins were quickly dissolved by the high temperature. Hee, two Tony Starks, what a surprise this world is. As the high temperature of the body dissipated, the orange-red skin gradually returned to normal. He turned around slowly, and he had a face that was 7 to 8 points similar to Tony's. 3 days later, the tragic scene of the underground city in Johannesburg was posted on the Ultron network, and everyone could see the bloody scene. The whole world boiled, and while countless people condemned Iron Man, the weak voice defending Iron Man unsurprisingly disappeared in the countless waves of condemning Iron Man. Flushing underground city. Tony looked at the voices and comments condemning him on the internet with a gloomy expression. The anger in his heart had nowhere to vent, and he almost suffocated internal injuries. It's so easy to define me as the same existence as the evil Tony, what's the point of what I did before? He slammed his Palm computer angrily, wishing he could fight the evil Tony now. On the side, Yang Ming looked thoughtful. Tony, this thing shouldn't be done by the evil Tony, that guy is very proud. That's what Ultron did. Tony answered. It shouldn't be Ultron. Ultron is not a real human being, he won't use this method to deal with you. Who else could it be? Tony turned his head and calmed down slowly. Yang Ming shook his head. I have a hunch that our next enemies are not only Ultron and the evil Tony. Tony's face moved slightly. You mean, the multiverse has opened the channel again? Yang Ming let out a sigh of relief. Maybe, the situation is getting more and more complicated now, and we still have a chance. As soon as the words fell, Gwen knocked on the door and entered. Yummy, Steve and the others are back. As he spoke, he stepped aside, and Pietro, who was wearing a vulture flight suit, ran excitedly to embrace Yang Ming. Hi, my friend, thank you for your flight suit. You were right. If I didn't have a flight suit, I would be really dangerous this time. Pietro expressed gratitude. Behind her, Wanda's cheeks became thinner, and her brows and eyes were full of tiredness. Yummy, thank you, you saved Pietro. She forced a smile. This time the operation was far more dangerous than imagined. Not only did they not find the hiding place of the evil Tony, but they were also ambushed and almost never returned. Steve stepped forward, and on his tired face, there was a burnt mark on his forehead. Yummy, can we stay here? He said. Along the way, he found that this place seemed to have become Yang Ming's territory, and Barton no longer cared about it. Yang Ming smiled. Of course, you are very welcome here. By the way, is the injury on your forehead okay? Yang Ming pretended to be concerned. Well, pretend, after all, it's been a while since I've seen you up and down. Steve shook his head. It's okay, we were attacked again on the way back. Ultron. No, it's a group of superpowers exuding high temperature. Their body temperature is astonishing. They can easily melt the Mark armor and Ultron soldiers. It's terrifying. But their bodies seem to be unstable. Once the high temperature ability is used too much, their bodies will explode. Quote. High temperature. Explosion. Yang Ming frowned. Is it the Extremis virus? In Iron Man 3 Inches, Dr. Killian was originally a fan of Tony 22 years ago, but because Tony, who was shy with a female scientist, put a dove on him, he felt revenge and decided to study the Extremis virus by himself. 22 years later, Killian takes revenge on Tony, who has been in angst since the incident in New York. In general, it is another bloody incident caused by a superhero. These things have also come to this world, and the situation is getting harder and harder to see clearly. Yummy, do you know what that is? Steve asked when he noticed Yang Ming's strangeness. Yang Ming nodded and explained. If I'm not wrong, it should be the Extremis virus. When used on the human body, it will change the genetic structure of the human body, cause the body to generate a terrifying high temperature, and at the same time enhance various attributes of the human body, and have a terrifying self-healing ability. If the genes don't match the Extremis virus, there will be a terrible side effect, which is the self-destruction you see. Quote. Hearing the information about the Extremis virus, Tony behind Yang Ming seemed to have thought of something, and retreated with a guilty expression. Could it be that guy who successfully researched this thing? Impossible, that guy doesn't look very smart. At that time, because he was busy dating the beautiful scientist, he didn't care about the silly-looking guy at all. Knowing that this stuff is real, it's more important to date female scientists. Thinking of the female scientist, Tony had a look of aftertaste. Tony, what are you thinking? Yang Ming turned his head suddenly, seeing Tony's expression, cursed secretly. Tony came back to his senses and smiled awkwardly. Oh, it's nothing, Steve and the others are tired, I'll take them to rest. Okay, let's take a look at Morgan's progress. Learn. After everyone left, Yang Ming called out the system interface. Temporary task. Get your own territory, progress 100%. Reward. The card booster is upgraded to 20%. After receiving the reward, a black camera appeared in Yang Ming's hands, and it quickly diffused light, and the upgrade was completed soon. Card amplifier 20%. Place system cards, which can increase the effect of using cards by 20%. The 20% increase in the card effect, plus the 25% increase effect obtained when recruiting 5 Spider-Man, the value is not too low. Yang name. Comprehensive strength. 21% power of the first generation of Spider-Man, about 5 tons plus unknown means to obtain power, about 2 tons, a total of 7 tons. Strength level. Surface level. Strength evaluation. C grade. Battle suit. Generation Spider-Man suit plus 25%. Second generation Spider-Man suit plus 25%. 3 generations of Spider-Man nanometal suit. Venom Spider-Man suit plus 25%. Gwen Spider battlesuit plus 25%. Jessica Spider suit plus 25%. Title Achievement. Spider-Man Collector. Spider-Man Card Pack. A set of random Spider-Man suits is generated every day. Spider-Man Killer. When the target is Spider-Man, reduce the target's stats by 18%. Card Amplifier 20%. Place system cards, which can increase the effect of using cards by 20%. Blank card. can store a set of battle armor, suit. Infinity Gem, Power Gem, Shard. After sorting out his information and data, Yongming found that he still seemed to be a war scum. He tested his own strength again, and deduced that the percentage increase effect of using a card booster is a superposition, not a sequential increase. It's like the 25-ton base power value of a generation of Spider-Man. But in fact, after using the booster, the power of 25 tons is directly increased by 45%, and the power value reaches 36.25 tons, which is 1.25 tons less than imagined. Although it is only 1.25 tons less, the gap is not small. Because the strength value of 25 tons is only a basic attribute, this value gradually increases with the pressure of the battle. At that time, the power of the first generation of Spider-Man to stop the train was far beyond the numerical range of 20 to 50 tons. If the value increased, the difference in the effect of the 1.25-ton increase would double. Dong dong. At this time, Banner knocked on the door and entered. "Yami, are you looking for me?" Yongming put away the amplifier and showed a kind smile. "Yes, I think you also know that Tony and I are teammates now, so I want to invite you to join too." Banner hesitated for a while, and tentatively said, "Even if I approve of you, the guy inside me won't listen." "It's okay, I will reason with him, and he will agree." Banner grinned with an ugly smile, if only he could make sense. "Okay, I agree to join, I hope you don't regret it." The moment Banner opened his mouth, Yongming frowned suddenly, secretly cursing the system as unreliable. "Ding, you are now in the Iron Man universe and cannot invite Banner." "Yami, what's wrong with you?" Seeing Yongming's brows furrowed tightly, Banner thought Yongming had regretted it, and his expression was a bit disappointed. "Disliked again." Yongming came back to his senses and smiled. "It's okay, I thought of something just now, and I want to ask your opinion." Banner felt relieved. "What's the matter?" "That's it. I'm wondering if the 4 artificial intelligences will succeed in attacking Ultron Network together if they join hands with the evil Tony." Banner shook his head. "Impossible, the evil Tony still needs the help of Ultron, and he can't agree." "I guess so." In order to take care of Banner's emotions, Yongming can be regarded as wisdom in a hurry. "Hey, Yami, although I don't know about artificial intelligence, I have another clue about Ultron." Outside the window, Wanda clasped her hands against the windowsill, and blinked at Yongming. Yongming turned his head back, the corner of his mouth twitched for a moment. Did the spider sense really not guard against women? "No, I'm not wearing a suit." "You didn't go to rest?" Yongming asked. Wanda shook her head. "I suddenly remembered something that should help you, so I want to tell you right away." "Come in and talk." "Ah." Wanda turned through the window. "Yami, before the last operation, I found out that Ivan Wan secretly arrested a prisoner. On that day, Ivan Vanki unusually did not mock Steve, and seemed to be in a good mood. So I got a little curious and hypnotized one of his men and got a message." Quote. "What news?" Yongming had a hunch that this news was really important to him. Wanda looked thoughtful. "The identity of the prisoner belongs to the highest confidentiality level, and the hypnotized person doesn't know much. All I know is that after catching that person, Ivan Vanki immediately started preparing for the upgrade of Ultron soldiers." Quote. Hearing this, Banner on the side immediately said, "Ultron is a program created by Tony and me. Although it is out of control, his abilities are limited to the data we gave him. To upgrade Ultron soldiers, you can only enter new data. But the data we gave him is the most advanced. If he wants to upgrade Ultron soldiers, he must have found more advanced technical data." Quote. "And the more advanced technical information is on that person." Yongming also thought of this, and immediately picked up the communicator on the table to notify. 3 days later, the multi-Avengers will take action for the first time. 3 days later, the exit of Flushing Underground City. In the unmanned warehouse by the coast, everyone gathered here, fully armed. Jessica put on the nano spider suit made by Morgan and fiddled with the black technology device on her wrist curiously. Puff. Tap the device, and the spider silk launched from the wrist is fused with the special liquid in the device, and the almost transparent spider silk is shot out. "Wow, fully transparent spider silk, how did you do it?" Jessica looked at Morgan with joy on her face. The silk became fully transparent, making her silk traps even more difficult to detect. Morgan looked proud. This is just a trivial matter, although the Zhenjin battle suit can't be removed, but on the basis of the nano suit, I made a special device according to your spider silk characteristics. As long as you shoot the silk, the environmental cloaking liquid in the device fuses with your silk to become more transparent, and this process will not slow down the speed at which you shoot the silk. Quote. After speaking, Gwen fiddled with the wrist device curiously. Puff. With a thought, the blood-colored spider silk injection device quickly merged with the liquid in it, and the blood-colored liquid that sprayed a wide range was not in the shape of spider silk. The bloody liquid sprayed the ground, quickly blended into the concrete, and then there was no movement. Gwen was stunned. How did my spider silk become like this? There is no stealth function, and the corrosion toxicity is almost reduced to the extreme. Could it be that Morgan did it on purpose? She looked at Morgan suspiciously. This guy must be jealous that I'm prettier than her. Seeing this, Morgan stepped forward with a smile, fingertips covered with nanometal, and stretched out his fingers to touch the blood-soaked concrete. Puff. With a light finger, the finger can easily penetrate into the concrete, as if poking a piece of tofu. What? When everyone saw this, their eyelids couldn't help but twitch. What a terrifying softening power. Yang Ming couldn't help but said. Morgan nodded. Gwen's poisonous spider silk has not been fully developed by her, so I added a mixed potion to her device after studying her spider silk. As long as the bloody spider silk is mixed with the medicine inside, the fired spider silk will be in a liquid state, able to soften most metals and hard objects. Quote. It's good to soften the defense. Yang Ming nodded slightly, thinking that he would have time to give his Gwen suit a tube of this potion. Gwen is also very satisfied, but still has doubts. Then I can't use ordinary spider silk when I wear this device. No problem, you can adjust the mode. Yes, that's the button. Morgan taught him a little bit, but Gwen was still a little unaccustomed to using the device to shoot spider silk. It's so troublesome. By the way, can this potion soften a man's heart? Gwen asked. Everyone. I'm afraid not. Morgan's forehead was covered with black lines. All look at mine. Peter secretly scolded Gwen for being a nympho, wearing a watch-like device on his wrist, and experimenting with his new device. With the venom, he can save a suit. Puff. Tap the device, and the micro-injection injects the back of the hand from the bottom of the device suddenly. After being stimulated, the venom in the body wakes up quickly, and the black liquid turns into a devil's face and separates from behind Peter. Oh my fellas, what did you feed me? I feel like I'm going crazy. The venom licked the corners of his mouth, saliva flew everywhere, and his face was full of enjoyment. Peter, on the other hand, looked at the bulging muscles in his arm with a look of amazement. I feel that its strength has become much stronger. Morgan said. This is a trace element extracted from animal brain cells, and it is the most important substance for parasites to survive. I extracted this substance and injected it into the venom body, which can increase your strength for a short time. Quote. Thank you, I like this feeling very much. Peter thanked him, then put on his headphones and practiced his dance moves in a good mood. After get off work, I have to go back to have fun with Mary, show off my cool dancing posture, and practice first. Seeing this, everyone looked up at the ceiling subconsciously. Is this guy an idiot? No, it's a dance idiot. Then, it was Peter II who tested his new suit. He has a lot of research on spider silk, so Morgan added some auxiliary functions to his battle suit to improve his flexibility. The same is true for Peter too. In order to maximize its advantages, Morgan only increased the defense of the suit. The 5 members of the spider team have improved a lot through time travel, and Morgan, who has more mature technology, has improved the suit device. Not to mention the group fight against the tyrant, it is no problem to fight against the Avengers of the multiverse. Finally, Morgan looked at Yang Ming, and handed the 3-generation nano spider suit card to Yang Ming. Yummy, I have only completed part of the function you requested, and I will find time to slowly improve the rest. Yang Ming took the card and said with a smile, no problem, thank you for your hard work. As he spoke, the card in his hand turned into light particles and slowly disappeared. Witnessing this scene, Morgan couldn't help but ask, Yami, do your cards use space transformation technology? Yang Ming was not sure. It should be, I don't know too well, I will borrow more research from you some other day. Well, I should have some clues with more time, thank you for your generosity. You're welcome, my own. Yang Ming waved his hand, then turned to look at the crowd. Okay, let's act according to our previous plan. At the scene, Morgan, Button, Tony, Wanda, Pietro, Steve and others nodded. Banner asked with a blank face, what plan? Why don't I know? Yang Ming grinned, Doctor, you don't need to know, just let Hulk out. Are you sure? Banner smiled stiffly. Of course. Yang Ming stepped forward and grabbed Banner's collar, are you ready? Wait, let me adjust it first. Before he finished speaking, Banner felt a sense of weightlessness on his anxious face, and his whole body broke through the ceiling of the warehouse instantly under Yang Ming's throw. In midair, a bird flew past his eyes, and his consciousness became blurred. Roar! The next moment, Banner's face was ferocious, and he roared angrily. His clothes were exploded, except for a pair of underpants. Green skin permeated his body size soared several times and landed on the ground, and the angry hammer on his chest wreaked havoc on the surrounding no man's land. Didi, found the rebel forces. Code name, Hulk. Start righteous killing. The moment the high-altitude drone spotted Hulk, dense flames flew from the mechanical garage in New York City, and a large number of mechanical soldiers rushed here to start a righteous siege on Hulk. Boom boom. The sound of the explosion came from far away, and Yang Ming in the warehouse heard the movement and said to everyone. Wanda and Steve, and Tony and I sneaked into the Ultron building, and the others just need to make trouble as much as possible, disturb Ultron's site, and drag these mechanical soldiers. If you lose, then immediately go back to the underground city to hide. Quote. Okay, my friend, rest assured and leave it to me. Pietro wiped his hair angrily, and it turned into a trace of pale silver energy and disappeared from Yang Ming's sight. Barton looked at Peter 1 and said, can we act together later? Why? Peter 1 wondered. You are the oldest and should be the most reliable. Peter 1. Oh, Mr. Hawkeye, our goal is to attract mechanical soldiers, not to fight them desperately, so we need to split up. All right. Barton sighed, and saw him tiptoe to the entrance of the warehouse with a bow and arrow on his back, carefully poking his head out to observe the situation outside. After confirming that there was no possibility of being discovered, he found a suitable corner to squat and throw an arrow in the back. As a marksman, he cannot be exposed to the enemy. Yang Ming shook his head helplessly when he saw this scene. The eagle eye of this world seemed to be very stable. Come on, Tony, Steve, Wanda. Okay, Yami. After the four left, Peter and the others looked at each other and nodded slightly. This operation is too dangerous, we need to increase the price. It's not good, we haven't got the Zhenjin battle suit yet. Well, the price will increase after the suit is available. Morgan leaned forward and said with a smile, don't worry, Yami has already handed over the Zhenjin to me. I will hand over the Zhenjin battle suit to you directly when the Zhenjin battle suit is finished. You can boldly ask for salary. When the five heard this, their eyes lit up. What is this called? In Yami's words, this is called prostitution. Downtown New York, Manhattan. The former Stark building has become the Ultron building, and the luminous letters on the top of the building have also been replaced with the English abbreviation of Ultron. Boom. Flames continued to shoot from the top of the building, and a large number of mechanical soldiers were dispatched to all parts of New York to eliminate the rebel forces. Countless citizens looked up at the mechanical soldiers flying across the sky. They clearly felt that the atmosphere today was particularly heavy, as if something big was about to happen. Explosions continued to be heard in no man's land all over New York City, and the city once again set off a wave of heat. The weak tremors on the ground let them know that the war had started again. In the coffee shop near the Ultron building, Yang Ming observed the shield not far from the building for a while, and looked back at the three of them. Peter and the others can't last much longer. We must rescue that man within half an hour. Steve nodded. No problem. Aside, Wanda's eyes glowed with bloody energy, and the shield agent who was drinking coffee not far away paused, got up and walked towards the entrance of Ultron building with dull eyes. Ivan Vanki is not in shield, he's in Ultron building. Steve frowned. Wanda's hypnotized agent went to find Ivan Vanki, but the other party walked towards the Ultron building. The crimson energy in Wanda's eyes still persisted. It seems so. Steve, you are ready. I'm okay. As Steve said, he turned around and ordered a cup of coffee to sit by the window, followed by Wanda. But Yang Ming and Tony are hiding in secret and observing the situation. Soon, Ivan Vanke aggressively led people into the coffee shop, and a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents surrounded Steve and Wanda. "Steve, you still dare to come back?" Ivan Vanke sneered with sinister eyes. Steve looked helpless. "Yes, we're back, I admit defeat, let's talk alone." "Can Ivan Vanke asked the surrounding agents to exit the coffee shop, and sat opposite Steve with their legs crossed unscrupulously. This is the Ultron building, and he is not worried about the two playing tricks at all. His former opponent was about to become his prisoner, and he was in a great mood. The faint crimson energy floated, and he was in a trance for a while, as if he saw the picture of himself successfully capturing Steve and Wanda and becoming the only leader of S.H.I.E.L.D. He became the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., found Tony, wiped out all the rebels, and Ultron appointed him as the next global director. Ivan Vanke was hypnotized without any precautions. Obviously, Wanda did not let everyone know about her hypnotic ability. In front of the coffee table, Yang Ming and Tony walked up to Ivan Vanke, who had fallen into a hallucination. Looking at the wretched smile on this guy's face, they couldn't help but look at each other. "Tony, has this guy always been like this?" "Well, it shouldn't be. He used to just want revenge on me, but now he seems to want to have power even more." "Well, power is indeed a good thing. Yummy, let's get started." "It is good." The two put on human-faced silicone masks and pretended to be S.H.I.E.L.D. agents. Yang Ming said to Wanda, "Let's go." Wanda nodded slightly, thought for a while and said, "Can you change it to a red one? I like red." "No, only the silver package." Yang Ming rolled his eyes, took out the handcuffs and put them on. And Tony handcuffed Steve, and the four followed Ivan Vanke, who was controlled by Wanda, out of the coffee shop. The three of Steve left S.H.I.E.L.D., and the former director of S.H.I.E.L.D., Brutin, also disappeared. The only person Ultron can use now is Ivan Vanke. Ivan Vanke regards Tony as his mortal enemy. Ultron is very reassuring to use, and the opponent's ability is not bad. So, Yang Ming found this guy. The agents were very surprised by the sudden arrest of Steve and Wanda. Oh, the famous captain didn't resist. It seems that he is afraid of becoming the second Stark. Haha, no one in this world is afraid of Ultron, and the captain is also human. That's right, there is also Wanda. Tisk tisk, we seem to be able to. Wait, Orn, don't forget we're agents. What are you afraid of? She is a criminal now and is not protected by Ultron's law. By the way, what happened to those two guys? We didn't seem to call them this time. When did they go in? Don't think about it, let's go, the boss told us to go back and stand by. Coming. Ivan Vanke dismissed the agents, took the four named Yang into the building, and walked into the special elevator. Ding. In the elevator, Ivan Vanke clicked on the fingerprint screen at the bottom of the button, and the elevator began to descend deep underground. Underground. Yang Ming frowned, and glanced at the negative numbered floors displayed by the elevator. Soon, the elevator stopped running and the elevator door opened. Ivan Vanke stepped out of the elevator and reached out to close the monitoring device at the door. "Okay, we can talk now," Wanda said. Looking at the alloy gate at the end of the passage, Tony pulled off his mask. "It's so easy to sneak in, why let them lure away a large number of mechanical soldiers?" He was speechless. "Because it's easy to come in, but difficult to get out. I don't have the authority to release the prisoners here, and Ultron will definitely be alarmed when I save them," Ivan Vanke suddenly explained. "Oh, I didn't ask you, and you have learned to answer quickly," Tony complained, and just raised his foot to walk into the passage, but remembered the bridge in the movie, and quickly retracted his footsteps. First, to see if there is a laser, he raised his hand to manipulate the nano metal. Tap tap. Suddenly, Ivan Vanke passed Tony and strode forward, and the passageway lit up with white light one after another, and the picture he imagined did not appear. Well, this guy's steps must be regular. Tony observed Ivan Vanke's feet carefully and guessed. Idiot. Ivan Vanke, who was walking in front, suddenly cursed. "Tony, Wanda, did you hypnotize him?" he asked suspiciously. Wanda raised her eyebrows and smiled. "Who knows?" She strode into the aisle as she spoke. "You." Yang Ming tore off the mask and patted the opponent on the shoulder. "Let's go, you've been talking too much nonsense recently, so don't play with Peter." After speaking, he quickly followed Wanda. Tony turned black. Steve followed Yang Ming, and paused when he passed Tony. Tony said with a stiff face, "What do you want to say?" Steve thought for a while, and comforted, "Don't worry, in fact, you will do the same when you play with Yami." Tony, "I think so." I shrugged and smiled and followed Steve. With Ivan Venki verifying the face, the alloy door opened. To the surprise of the four, there were no cruel instruments of torture and equipment for extorting confessions inside the alloy gate. "This is an ordinary room." The gray-haired old man sat on a chair with his back to the crowd, and a group photo of the members of the Avengers was projected on the wall in front of him. Steve, Tony, Banner, Natasha, Patton, Steven, Peter, Saul, Wanda. The old man bent his body and reached out to touch the projection lightly, as if he wanted to hug. But the hand stretched halfway and then retracted tremblingly, and finally there was only a long sigh left. Hey, after so many years, the survivors are always the most tormented. I shouldn't have hesitated back then. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.